Of Red Pill News Live. Hope you guys are having a great day. Yes, learning is spelled without an N. You'll understand when I get to that story. It is the Quality Leering Center. And it's brought to you by Somali Fraud in Minnesota. To all the smarties over there on YouTube. Oh, man. I get it. It's an AI-generated image, and you're so used to seeing things spelled incorrectly on AI, but guess what? I have the ability to spell them correctly and spell them incorrectly if I decide to do so, and that's exactly what I did. Well, Nick Shirley, our boy Nick, did a bombshell report from Minneapolis over the weekend exposing nearly $111 million in Somali fraud in a single day. It just goes to show you what is possible if you really want to investigate. And it didn't stop there. Nick inspired Americans all over the country to start looking at their local Somali populations, investigating home health care, trucking, daycare centers, you name it. And guess what? Somalia is not a microcosm. It's happening all over the world, all over this nation. All right, so do me a favor, hit that like button, help us out by sharing the show. Sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn because we're about to get into it right about now. And may I please just say, I hope each and every one of you had a very Merry Christmas. I know that we did here, had a wonderful couple of days off. Doesn't normally happen, but obviously a couple of times a year I take the opportunity. Oh my gosh, Eleanor 2000 with a $100 Rumble rant, starting it off strong. Zach, thank you for a fantastic year. Many blessings in the new year. Eleanor, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you. Thank you. So generous. Can't tell you how much that means to me. You are quite literally making it possible for me to continue our mission here on Red Pill News, coming to you live on the platform of your choice, whether it's Rumble, Pilled, even YouTube, even though there's less people watching on YouTube than watching on Rumble, but still trying to get the word out there. Also over there on X, thank you very much. Thank you to the people watching on Getter, and there may even be one or two people watching over there on Kick as well. Thank you for your patronage, and I hope you guys had a wonderful holiday. I hope you have some plans for the new year. I know that we are going to continue exposing this fraud and all of the various ways that people are ripping us off all around the world. So I also need to give a big thank you to Trump One over there with that cookie. Thank you very much. I'd also like to give a big shout out to the very first sponsor of today's program. That's going to be my friend over there at All Good. You can reach them at the link in the description below by heading on over to goallgood.com/redpill78. The code is redpill78. You can see on screen they have a variety of products, but each and every product from All Good specializes in natural, clean skincare. They use only premium, purposeful ingredients like 100% grass-fed and finished beef tallow or organic essential oils. Every single ingredient tells you on the bottle or the packaging exactly why they're using it. There's an explanation, so you know that there's no fillers. There's going to be everything that will be hypoallergenic, nutrient-rich formulas that are no toxins. It's designed to nourish, hydrate, and strengthen your skin barrier with things like vitamins A, D, E, and K. And these products mimic your skin's natural lipids for deep moisture, making it suitable for sensitive skin and skins of all type. It will promote a healthy, youthful glow without the harmful chemicals. And they have a commitment to clean, natural essentials that support your overall wellness, and they're aligned with movements for healthier, toxin-free living. Also, the packaging is totally natural amber glass jars to preserve the freshness and the quality. So if you're seeking minimalist, high-quality, animal-derived natural skincare that prioritizes purity and effectiveness, then All Good is for you. This is a local American business brought to you by my friend Jessica, who is a viewer of the show. Jessica, I hope you're out there. And please definitely go support Jessica at goallgood.com/redpill78. Get yourself a very special discount. All right, now we are going to begin today by heading on over to South America, Venezuela. The battle between America, the United States of America, and the Venezuelan-located cocaine traffickers has just gone up a few degrees. The United States has struck, for the first time inside Venezuela. This is no longer just a battle in the Caribbean Sea. For years, our policy towards Venezuela has been focused on pressure, sanctions, and maritime interdiction. Obviously, the maritime interdiction also went up a couple of degrees very recently, but a major drug production facility that was located on Venezuelan soil is, in fact, a clear escalation and a deliberate shift in strategy. Washington and the Trump administration is no longer satisfied chasing these very fast boats filled with cocaine on the ocean, and they are now targeting the infrastructure, just as President Trump said that they would. This will, of course, no longer enable the drug traffickers to even bring this cocaine out onto the boats. Geopolitically, this changes the equation in the Caribbean, sending a warning not only to Caracas, but also to any other regional actors and cartels who had assumed that the United States of America would just continue on business as usual. Now, President Trump has, in fact, confirmed this. Let's go ahead and hear from him. He had a meeting earlier today with Benjamin Netanyahu, and of course, he said that there was a major explosion at a Venezuelan drug facility.
Does anybody recognize this man? Not too many people. They've been very fair, actually, for the last 3 days.
President Trump, are you going to have a green light for another attack in Iran?
Okay?
Go
ahead.
Mr. President, how quickly should you hope to move to phase 2 of the peace plan for Gaza?
As quickly as we can, but there has to be a disarmament, that we have to disarm with Hamas. So one of the things we'll talk about, certainly, but there has to be a disarming of Hamas. Otherwise, very quickly. Yeah.
Can you say anything more about the explosion in Venezuela that you mentioned in a radio interview? Did the military do that? Can you share any more details about
Well,
that?
it doesn't matter, but there was a major explosion in the dock area where they load the boats up with drugs. They load the boats up with drugs. So we hit all the boats, and now we hit the area. It's the implementation area. That's where they implement, and that is no longer around.
No longer around.
President Trump, yesterday there was an explosion overnight in the Russian state that Ukraine tried to hit the reservoir.
All right. Now, somebody in the YouTube chat said the goallgood.com/redpill78 wasn't working. If that's the case, it works for me when I click it. You can also just go to goallgood.com and then use the code redpill78. If that doesn't work, I drop the link into the chat as well, though. I'm going to go ahead and click it from the chat, and it works just fine for me. So I don't know why it's not working for anybody else. Go ahead and try it again, and you will be able to check out the products. All right. So, like I said, this is a major escalation. This is going to hit the cartels exactly where it hurts. It's going to significantly decrease their ability to not only deliver cocaine, but produce cocaine right where they've been producing it. Now, President Trump and his administration has done some incredible things in this first year. It's funny, I saw somebody in the YouTube chat earlier saying, day 341, zero swamp drained. I would obviously disagree with that. In this nearly 1 year that President Trump has been in office, I think there has been a tremendous amount of effort placed into, across the board, draining the swamp. The swamp is not merely made up of your favorite Democrat politicians that you hate or even your favorite Republican politicians that you hate. The swamp is vast, and the swamp extends from sea to shining sea, from the lowest ranks of the socioeconomic status all the way to the elite ivory-towered liberals of the coastal cities. And I believe that we are making our way up. Now, criminal networks are encompassing each and every one of these various types of people. And there will be in the 2026, in my opinion, because we are approaching the midterms, a renewed effort on bringing some higher level people to justice. Of course, along the way, we have attempted with Letitia James, with James Comey. Currently, there is a grand jury taking place in Florida that John Brennan is embroiled in. I believe all of those things are going to bear some wicked fruit. Sweet, sweet berries for the people of the United States of America, but of course, rotten apples for the deep state. But when you look across the entire nation and you see exactly what the changing law enforcement agencies of America have been up to, they have done a tremendous amount of work to keep you and your families safe. In fact, crime across America right now is at historic lows. We have deported more people than we did in President Trump's first administration. We are merely getting started. We have deployed the National Guard to several various cities throughout the United States of America to keep those people safe. And we have shut down the border between Mexico and the United States. Not a single illegal alien has come across in many, many months. When President Trump took office in early January of 2025, crime was on the rise. But since he began living at the White House, once again, crime has been on the decline. The United States has experienced the largest one-year drop in murders ever recorded in the history of our nation. There's been a nearly 20% decrease nationwide. Across the board, violent crime has declined by more than 10%. Property crime has fallen by more than 12%. This is according to actual data from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is the real-time crime index and the Council on Criminal Justice. As we know, when Joe Biden was in office, people all across the country in positions of law enforcement were taking crimes and they were downgrading them to try to make it appear as if crime was not nearly as bad as it was. That is coming to an end under President Trump. We want to know what really is happening on the streets of the United States of America. But besides that fact, many policies that President Trump specifically has enacted have contributed directly to this drop in crime across the board. That includes the mass deportation of illegal aliens, the self-deportation of illegal aliens, that deployment of National Guard to crime-ridden cities like Washington, D.C., our giant nation's capital, and the sealing of the border. There were illegal aliens, gangs, criminal cartel members, women and children being trafficked across that border. Illicit drugs were pouring in along with guns and Lord knows what else. The administration has, of course, reported that 2.5 million illegal immigrants left the United States in the year of 2025. That comprises 622,000 deportations, an estimated 1.9 million self-deportations. ICE was averaging an arrest record of 821 per day between January and October of this year. Liberals and Democrats both claim that most of these individuals did not have prior convictions. However, we know that they actually did. There was something that they would often say, they lacked a criminal record. Well, you can't have a criminal record if you commit a crime, and then the people who are meant to enforce the laws that you are breaking refuse to actually bring you into a courtroom and have those charges filed against you. It's irrelevant. 100% of the people who are here in this country illegally were not meant to have come across the border. They did not have the proper status. They never went through the procedures in order to become an immigrant to the United States of America. The disingenuous framing of people as merely immigrants or merely travelers. These are homeless people. These are unhoused refugees that are seeking refuge in the United States of America. They just want that piece of the American dream. These dreamers come to the United States and they're simply looking to have what you have. Okay, well, fine. There's a lot of shit that I want that I don't have that I'm not just going and taking. Calling illegal aliens immigrants is like calling shoplifters customers. Okay, when somebody comes into your retail establishment and they steal $1,000 worth of material off the shelves and they put it into their backpack and then they walk out the front door, you're going to chase that person down. You're going to hold them until the police arrive and you're going to have them arrested. They are no longer a customer as soon as they break the law and steal from you. In the same way that these immigrants are no longer immigrants when they come here illegally. They now become a brand new special class of individual. Now, for these people who came to our country without the proper authority, they are illegal immigrants and therefore they must all be lawfully deported. The depiction of these individuals as somehow victims of the system is incredibly disingenuous. 70% of those individuals that I mentioned prior had been arrested and had criminal charges or convictions, whether they were here in our country or back at home in their nation of origin. Now, this distinction between charges and convictions is, of course, significant because DHS frequently drops criminal charges without prejudice so they can expedite deportation rather than pursue costly criminal trials. Anything we can do to get these people the hell out of our country. We don't need them clogging up our court system. We've got enough criminals here that are American citizens that we need to get them through that court system. There was an individual arrested, say, for assault or drug trafficking. They might have charges dismissed once the deportation proceedings begin, which of course means that there is no conviction in the system, despite the fact that they have obviously been engaged in criminal activity. So no charges and no convictions, of course, does not mean no crime. That is what the mainstream media and the lefties would have you believe. People like, the Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, people who are members of MS-13, people who are members of Tren de Aragua, people who are affiliated with any transnational criminal organization. They can easily be identified through intelligence, which may be developed here in the United States of America, may be provided by foreign law enforcement. We could take a look at their bodies and see that they have gang identifiers, gang tattoos. They may have friends who are known associates of criminal networks. They may be able to even provide testimony about their activities in the past. There may be testimony from witnesses, testimony from victims, people who have been criminally victimized by these individuals. They may have already been deported in the past. They may have already been sent home and then made their way here illegally again. And again, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he was found by a court and then again on appeal to be a member of Tren de Aragua, a gang member. Now, being a member of Tren de Aragua, of course, gives you a special designation because they're a transnational criminal organization, but to be a member of a transnational criminal organization is not itself a crime. However, by being able to perceive him in such a way, it prevented him from obtaining a green card or citizenship. He was never going to be an American citizen, no matter what the left or the ACLU or any other individuals like Mark Zaid or Norm Eisen did for him in court. So he got deported. Liberals claimed he had no convictions. He's merely a Maryland man, a family man, even though he was, of course, a wife beater and a child trafficker and a child molester and a human trafficker and a transnational criminal organization member, et cetera, et cetera. Broadly, people who are members of gangs lack U.S. criminal charges because they never get prosecuted for the crimes that they commit domestically. However, being in the United States illegally is the only thing that matters. Once we know that you're not meant to be here, once we know that you came across a border without having any sort of papers or anything like that, you become an illegal alien. The same is true if I was to go to Switzerland or England or to Spain or Portugal. I step foot across that border and I have no paperwork. I don't bring my passport and I say, please pay for everything for me. That's all I need. I need to become part of the Portugal dream. They're not going to do anything about that. They're going to send me back to my country of origin. If I'm lucky, they may also keep me in a Portuguese dungeon for as long as they want to. Take a look at National Guard in Washington, D.C. There have been more than 2,000 troops there since August. In Los Angeles, we've had 4,000 National Guard troops, 700 Marines. Of course, those were later reduced. Chicago, Memphis, Portland, New Orleans, all told 350 troops that were deployed in December of this past year. Many more should be there, but of course we have ongoing court battles because the left, and they don't care for safety and security. They don't like it when law and order reigns supreme on the streets. We're looking at very soon having National Guard on the streets of North Carolina cities like Raleigh and Durham and Chapel Hill, and of course, coming up very soon, St. Paul, Minnesota. Federal judges in Los Angeles, Chicago, and Portland have ruled these deployments unlawful or beyond presidential authority. Funny enough, the U.S. Supreme Court suggested that before we send in the National Guard, you have to send in the real military, which of course is kind of daring President Trump to declare the Insurrection Act in play. So then we can go ahead and just send in the Marines. That was what the administration said last week after they got word from the SCOTUS that they were not going to hear the case and that this is what needed to happen. There have been many times in the past where federal intervention was necessary, and it wasn't just in 2025, but in Washington, D.C. in 2025, there was a precipitous drop in murders, a 40% decline in murders. And of course, we know that the reclassification of crimes to make it seem as if no crimes are actually happening led to the police commissioner being placed on leave for falsifying crime data. And of course, she ended up leaving. Additionally, undermining claims that the city's crime problem had been exaggerated were proven to be correct. She would rather have you believe that there really was no crime that was taking place in Washington, D.C. But the numbers spoke for themselves once we got there. When you reclassify serious crimes, felony crimes, as misdemeanors, and then rather than counting convictions, you count charges or 911 calls, you've got Democrats who claim that crime was lower than what it actually was when President Trump came into office. This has happened all around the nation. Now, Chicago recorded a 28% decrease in murders, despite consistently ranking among the highest cities for homicides in the nation. Memphis experienced a nearly 20% drop in murders. New Orleans is on pace for its lowest murder count in decades. 97 homicides have occurred through November, as opposed to 124 that had occurred by this time in 2024. But securing the border, stemming the flow of hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens coming here so that they can drive drunk, kill your children, kidnap your daughters, murder your husbands, all of those things have led to incredible reductions in crimes. Not to mention the trafficking of fentanyl and other highly dangerous drugs across that border. When we're looking at fentanyl, there has been a decline at the southern border of 56% when compared to the exact same period for 2024. With the designation of a number of cartels as foreign terrorist organization and the deployment of advanced drug detection technology at the border. This is capable of scanning 100 vehicles per hour. Not to mention when you combine that with the pressure that have been placed not only on the presidents of Mexico, but other Latin American countries demanding that they secure their own border instead of just looking at the United States as an angry father looking down on you after you forget to clean your room for the 25th time. This is a collaborative effort. We all need to be doing our part. Overall, overdose deaths have declined by 25% from the year ending March 2025 compared to the previous year, falling from 103,000 down to 77,000. That's a win. All right, so whether or not you consider that a draining of the swamp, I sure as hell do. I have seen addiction and crime destroy the lives of families and individuals all across this country. I have seen the mental gymnastics that people on the left have gone through to try to make it appear as if the world is set right, even though you can see for your very eyes just how messed up everything is. You got your friends, your neighbors, your family dying all around you, people dropping dead for any number of reasons, and they would have us believe that there is nothing to see here. We'll tell you what. This is when I am so glad for surveillance cameras, why I am so glad to see that heroes like this man are out there. I want to show you guys this video. We had a hooligan of some type who stole a purse from an 87-year-old woman at a grocery store. And this young man chased the purse thief out of the store, drug him to the ground, and then proceeded to beat the holy hell out of him. Good for you, son. And of course, the sheriff's office rewarded him for his bravery shortly thereafter. Look, he's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're black. You're supposed to be on my side. We're supposed to be okay committing crimes. And he's like, no, son. No. I am not going to stand for you robbing an 87-year-old woman. Boom. Down on the ground. Straight to the face. Kick him in the ribs. Hold him until the police get there. Absolutely love to see it. He's like, get down, boy. Now, I wonder if this broad is like the wife of the guy who stole that purse.
Everybody in that store. He came out the store because you were chasing him and you were on him.
Yeah.
And he was running as fast as he could.
Yeah, he was.
And he's probably never ran that fast in his life. And he's probably not appreciated the police showing up that quick in his life, which we didn't get there real quick, winky wink. You took and made what we call a citizen's arrest. And you make us very, very proud. Everybody, just not here, but
Look at this guy. He's beaming. He's like, this is the coolest thing that has ever happened to me. I am so happy that this dude was in a based area with a based sheriff who was like, you did the right thing. Because if he would have been in, I don't know, say like Washington or Oregon or California, it's likely that the police may have arrested the Good Samaritan for beating the holy hell out of this criminal. They would have said, oh, you know, you shouldn't have done that. You should have just let him go. Let this old woman have all of her credit cards and her debit cards stolen and all of the cash in her wallet so that she could be victimized and then she would get nothing out of it. But no, this guy did the right thing, and the sheriff is doing the right thing by recognizing his bravery.
everybody in the country, man.
Yeah.
And we're proud of you, and I mean that. And thank you for what you've done.
Look at that, give him an award and everything.
So hold on
He's
to that
crying.
right there and they can get you a little picture of that.
Come right on over
Proud
there.
of you, man.
You guys are right in there. Is that a picture or what, folks? Hey, all right.
Faith in humanity
Cameras, bro.
restored.
We gotta take 10 more minutes to
Absolutely love it. Good for you, son. Good for you. I am here for this kind of stuff. I want to see more of this. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the deep state and whether or not we're going to get the type of justice that I have insisted we must. Now, over the weekend, there were quite a few people who were beginning to chirp up social media MAGA influencers talking about the statute of limitations coming up, that if we don't get these people within the next 12 days, then my goodness, you guys, all hope is lost and we are never going to have the justice we need. Now, Harmeet Dillon from the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, who undoubtedly is going to be the one handling this, she had to speak up, and she replied, first of all, to Gunther Eagleman. Trisha, Q Page Reed, Texas. Thank you so much, Trisha. She says, hey, Zach, Happy New Year to you and Lisa. Much love always. I pray you have a great and prosperous year. Thank you for your generosity. I really appreciate it. Also, thank you to Paulie, 9363 for the cookie over there on Pilled. All right, so she is the Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division, and she has assured the interwebs and Trump supporters that justice for the crimes committed by the January 6th committee will come. She was responding to a post from influencer Gunther Eagleman, who reminded Attorney General Pam Bondi of the statute of limitations on January 6th members. Now, that's assuming Gunther is not a lawyer. He's not a bad guy, but he's not a lawyer. All right. So he is assuming that the statute of limitations is going to end on January 6th. If you know anything about the January 6th committee, you know that it extended far beyond January 6th. And so the statute of limitations does not actually expire on January 6th. But he writes, Dear Pam Bondi, please do not let the statute of limitations run out on the J6 committee criminals. There are only 12 more days. They all need to be held accountable for the treason they committed. Regards, 78 million Americans who voted for President Trump. Trump, Bondi, DOJ, Harmeet Dillon replies, is working to bring justice to those who weaponized January 6th, 2021. No statute of limitations will hinder the DOJ's efforts to bring justice to those who weaponized persecution of American citizens. January 6th, 2026 is not a deadline for the DOJ to bring prosecutions. My boss, Pam Bondi, works around the clock to bring justice for all Americans, she continued. Don't be a hater and simp for weaponized online disinformation. I can only suggest here that we listen to the experts because Harmeet Dillon knows exactly what she's talking about. The January 6th committee conducted its investigation without any type of bipartisan oversight. They selectively presented evidence. They failed to preserve key records. Many of those records were later destroyed. The committee has also, of course, declined to examine security failures that took place at the Capitol, including the role of congressional congressional leadership like Nancy Pelosi, law enforcement decisions that were made prior to January 6th, or any of the confidential human sources from the FBI or the agents that were on the ground. Federal prosecutors relied on expanded and novel legal theories to charge defendants that included non-violent individuals while they imposed prolonged pretrial detention in countless cases. This took place almost up until, well, I'm sorry, it did take place up until President Trump came back into office in January of 2025. So there is an argument here that the statute of limitations isn't going to expire until January of 2030. However, if they are involved in a conspiracy, I would imagine that's exactly what they were involved in. The statute of limitations doesn't expire until 5 years after the continuation of that conspiracy. There could be all kinds of communications between these people talking about what it is that they're going to say if they end up getting subpoenaed. And the DOJ and the FBI also coordinated closely with that committee throughout that investigation. They used January 6th as the basis for sweeping surveillance, prosecutions, sentencing strategies that treated political protesters like domestic extremists. I think that there is justice coming. I just can't tell you exactly when it's going to happen, but I do believe that President Trump and the people that he has put in these positions all throughout his administration understand that if we don't clean out the federal government, if we don't actually bring these people to justice, then we run the risk of everything that we saw taking place before happening again as soon as President Trump leaves. I simply don't believe that President Trump is not savvy enough to recognize that. So again, I have faith in God, but I'm trusting in President Trump and the administration. Thank you so much to Jim Kyle. He says, did you see Brian Glenn still getting a lot of press questions at President Trump's pressers that MTG spat may be a ruse? I did not. No, I have not seen that. Isn't Brian Glenn, isn't that MTG's boyfriend? But no, I have not seen that. That's interesting. If anybody would know, he's going to be the one to know. All right. Now, also, take a look at this. Getting back to the idea of a conspiracy and the very people that we would love to see prosecuted, Hillary Clinton is going to be top among them for many people. Some new information was just made public as part of Chuck Grassley's oversight investigations in the Senate. And, of course, Hillary and Bill are both scheduled to testify in a little over a week. So we're learning that these newly released FBI documents that have been put out by Chuck Grassley show that the Federal Bureau of Investigation intercepted communications showing that Hillary Clinton was discussing straw man donations with an Indian hotel magnate, a man by the name of Sant Singh Chatwal. He is, of course, a convicted felon. These detailed documents provided to the Senate Judiciary Committee, they were published on December 15th, and they exposed many different concerns that a lot of Americans have. And certainly I would hope that the FBI has those concerns, knowing now that they had this information many years ago and they could have acted on it. But Hillary Clinton and her foundation, the Clinton Foundation, and aka the Clinton Global Initiative, they were involved in a number of acts of foreign bribery, pay-to-play schemes, and there was a vast misuse of Clinton Foundation resources that was being funneled in for personal and campaign slush fund paybacks during President Clinton's tenure as Secretary of State, and then it continued again as she was approaching becoming a candidate for the presidency. These documents are coming from the FBI's Cracked Foundation investigation, which was an investigation into the Clinton Foundation that began probing the Clinton Foundation's activities going back as early as 2010. Now, at that time, the Daily Caller had found the FBI recorded chat while discussing illegal straw donations to Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign. Now, who is Chatwal? He's a longtime friend of the Clinton family. He was a trustee at the Clinton Foundation. He was a fundraiser for the Clinton Foundation, and he pled guilty in 2014 to laundering these donations through straw contributors, and he forfeited $1 million as part of a deal with the Department of Justice. There was a quote that was captured by an FBI informant, and that quote was from Chatwal. He said, That's the only way to buy them. Get into the system. Of course, he is referring to his deliberate efforts to influence politicians through illicit contributions. This, let me also remind you, is something that is happening regularly through Act Blue, which is currently under investigation by the Department of Justice and the FBI. Now, by spring of 2016, when Hillary Clinton was once again a candidate for the president, she was on the verge of securing the Democratic presidential nomination, and FBI field officers operating out of New York, they were being led by Assistant Director in Charge Diego Rodriguez. He urged headquarters in Washington, D.C. to interrogate Hillary Clinton about these foreign donations. So the agents prepared a series of pointed questions that highlighted the various red flags they had uncovered during the course of their Cracked Foundation investigation. That included evidence that the FBI themselves had been intercepting individuals that were associated with the Clinton Foundation. So there is a vast conspiracy of individuals who were working not only with Hillary Clinton directly, but also with her proxies to ensure that money was flowing into the Clinton Foundation. Clinton Cash, anyone? The Clinton Foundation whistleblowers, anyone? One of those most damaging pieces of evidence was this recorded conversation between Clinton herself and Mr. Chatwal, where they were discussing the settlement of her lingering 2008 campaign debt. Remember, when she was running for president in 2016, she still had a ton of debt from her 2008 campaign. Now, in these documents handed over to Chuck Grassley, Clinton reportedly told Chatwal that he could no longer donate directly to her campaign, but he should instead funnel money to the Clinton Foundation. That is a crime, ladies and gentlemen. So agents wanted to ask Hillary Clinton directly, based on information derived from a recorded conversation. You, Hillary Clinton, and Mr. Chatwal had a conversation regarding the settlement of debt. You indicated to Mr. Chatwal that he could no longer donate to your campaign, but he should instead donate to the Clinton Foundation. So the question on everybody's mind, inquiring minds want to know, were donations made to the Clinton Foundation used for personal use and or to settle campaign debt? Well, we know that Chelsea Clinton paid for her multi-million-dollar wedding with funds that were taken from the Clinton Foundation. We also know that the fund for Haiti, which was something like $10 billion that was raised, there was like 6 houses that were rebuilt. And they were like shantytown style houses that you would generally see just regular people putting up with cinder blocks and corrugated metal in a place like Haiti. So there are a lot of concerns about the Clinton Foundation. It was supposed to be a global charity, but as we all know, it was being exploited and used as a backdoor mechanism to pay off political debts to fund Hillary Clinton and the Clinton family's personal expenses. It circumnavigated campaign finance laws. By the way, all of these things are things that we would expect to hear Hillary and Bill Clinton asked about when their time to testify before Congress comes up in just a short couple of days. We've also got documents from the State Department. We actually received them through a WikiLeaks release in 2011. These documents confirmed Chatwal's role in helping settle Clinton's 2008 campaign debt, which, of course, fuels further suspicions of impropriety. I think it goes a little bit deeper than that personally. I would use stronger language. But the investigation by the FBI also delved into Chatwal's influence on major U.S. foreign policy decisions. We can look at something like the 2008 U.S.-India nuclear deal. Now, this agreement allowed India to receive American nuclear technology exports, but they did not have to join the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. This was a significant departure from decades of U.S. policy. And who was it that was running the State Department? Oh, yes, it was Chatwal's old friend, Hillary Clinton. Now, Chatwal himself lobbied extensively for the deal. It sounds like he spent millions of dollars of his own money, and he even called the Indian Prime Minister to celebrate Congress's passage of this agreement in October 2008. Back in 2010, 2 years later, Chatwal received India's prestigious Padma Bhushan Award for his efforts, and he boasted himself about swaying Hillary Clinton on the issue. Does anybody here think that Hillary Clinton is going to be swayed for anything other than a big, fat Check? I don't think so. Well, Peter Schweitzer, who is, of course, the author of the 2016 book Clinton Cash, that sparked this FBI probe at this time. He said, even my close friend Hillary Clinton was not in favor of the deal in 2006. But when I put the whole package together, she also came on board. This is Chatwell speaking in Clinton Cash. It took me 4 years and millions of dollars, which I paid out of my own pocket. I'm very proud of that because I love my motherland. Isn't that refreshing when people love their home country so much they're willing to bribe your political officials to get what that country needs? Now, FBI agents sought to probe whether or not the donations from Chatwell bought influence. I think it's undeniable. However, in their prepared questions, they asked, Mr. Chatwell pled guilty to using straw donors to raise campaign funds for your first presidential campaign, along with using large amounts of cash to your husband. To your knowledge, did Mr. Chatwell also provide large cash payments to Indian officials in an effort to secure a nuclear deal between India and the United States? That's definitely going to be a question Bill and Hillary Clinton will be asked in just a few short days. In addition, adding to the scandal, these documents that have just been turned over reveal that the Clinton Foundation continued accepting foreign donations during the time that Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. We already knew this, but it sounds like Chuck Grassley is just getting on board. There was, of course, an agreement that was reached with the Obama administration because Hillary Clinton was becoming the Secretary of State to restrict such contributions and, if they happen, to disclose them fully. One question that the FBI had prepared for Hillary Clinton but apparently never asked was, you had an agreement with the Obama administration which planned restrictions on receiving donations to the Clinton Foundation from foreign countries. However, the foundation continued to accept contributions without disclosure from countries where you lobbied for actions. On how many occasions did the foundation disregard the official agreement to accept contributions from countries you had State Department business in? I would take a look at every single thing that Hillary Clinton did during her time as Secretary of State and match those up with the publicly available information that was filed by the Clinton Foundation. Now, shortly after Hillary and Barack came to that agreement, there was a separate entity called the Clinton-Justra Sustainable Growth Initiative, which you may have heard about before. This was established, and that agency funneled funds to the foundation without the required disclosures. Agents also were wondering, per your agreement with the Obama administration prior to becoming Secretary of State, you agreed to disclose all donations made to the Clinton Foundation. However, shortly after agreeing to this, the Clinton-Justra Sustainable Growth Initiative was established. The majority of funds raised by CGSGI are eventually sent to the Clinton Foundation, but no financial disclosures are made by CGSGI. What are the funding sources for CGSGI, and how many foreign governments send donations to CGSGI? Now, this sounds like an investigation that was basically handed on a silver platter to the FBI. However, despite all of these leads and unanswered questions, the FBI headquarters in Washington under the Obama administration, which had appointed Clinton as Secretary of State after defeating her in the primary, refused to pursue the investigation. And when the FBI finally interviewed Clinton in July of 2016 as part of their mid-year exam investigation into her private email server, none of these questions were ever asked. Field agents expressed deep frustration. There was one Eastern District of New York assistant U.S. attorney noted in 2019, we were trying to explore the foundation and we were told no by FBI HQ. Field agents were frustrated, but HQ would not let it go forward. Kash Patel, please tell me that this is going forward. At this point, Hillary Clinton has lived a long and fruitful life. She has made many millions of dollars many times over. And this woman is a snake. She deserves to be at the bottom of a filthy, stagnant pit filled with fetid water, begging for someone to put the lotion in the basket. It's Tony Man says, hi, Zach, wishing you and Lisa a healthy and prosperous new year. Thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate you, my friend. It's Tony Man. Also, Moonbaby0437 says, thanks for bringing me the news, RP. I truly appreciate having news sources I can trust. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And Ina Also says, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and party time, I think. Thank you so much. Be Happy says the Clintons will never see justice. I am not willing to say that the Clintons will never see justice. Just because they haven't seen justice yet, in my mind, doesn't mean that they're not going to see justice. So yeah, I am definitely hanging my hat and standing on that rug. And if I'm wrong, I will say Be Happy was right. But I'm not willing to say it yet because it hasn't happened. All right. Now, moving on to our next story. This does have to do with Kash Patel and the FBI. Kash had previously stated his intention to close the J. Edgar Hoover building, which until very recently, or until very soon, is going to be the FBI's headquarters in Washington, D.C. Well, the official plan to close it down and save American taxpayers billions of dollars has been announced. The staff at this headquarters will be relocated to the Ronald Reagan Building and International Trade Center, ditching a bloated $5 billion plan for a new facility that wouldn't have been ready until 2035. Kash Patel described this decision as a long overdue victory after more than 2 decades of bureaucratic failures. On X, he wrote, after more than 20 years of failed attempts, we finalized a plan to permanently close the FBI's Hoover headquarters and move that workforce into a safe, modern facility. Working directly with President Trump and Congress, we accomplished what no one else could. When we arrived, taxpayers were about to be on the hook for nearly $5 billion for a new headquarters that wouldn't reopen until 2035. We scrapped that plan. Instead, we selected the already existing Reagan building. That saved billions of dollars and allowed the transition to begin immediately with required safety and infrastructure upgrades already underway. Once complete, most of the HQ FBI workforce will move in, and the rest are continuing in our ongoing push to put more manpower in the field, where they will remain. This decision puts resources where they belong, defending the homeland, crushing violent crime, and protecting national security. It also delivers better tools for today's FBI workforce at a fraction of the cost. The Hoover building will be shut down permanently. Now, the move prioritizes reallocating resources to frontline field offices. A number of new field offices have been announced recently. They're going to be focusing, of course, on defending the homeland, combating violent crime, and bolstering national security, all doing it at a fraction of the cost. The J. Edgar Hoover building has been around for a long time. They first opened in 1975. There have been reports of structural decay and inefficiency, which have, of course, been brought up by agents on many different occasions in the past. And at the end of the day, this means that the Trump administration is well on its way to fully reforming federal agencies, rooting out the inefficiencies, and redirecting funds where they matter most, which is, of course, on the front lines. Now, I had mentioned Letitia James. Letitia Pkwy James. Give me just one moment. Letitia Pkwy James was, in fact, funded in the past by George Soros, and the political machine operated by George Soros has, since 2019, donated $71,000 to her state campaign. Those donations, first reported by the New York Post, include $18,000 Soros gave James in 2024, $13,000 contributed by his daughter-in-law, Jennifer Soros, in the May of this year. Records also indicate the Soros family provided an additional $40,000 to James across earlier campaign cycles. So roughly $31,000 of that total was directed towards her current re-election effort. Now, these figures don't include political support James is receiving through organizations that are funded by George Soros, places like the Working Families Party. But since 2016, the Open Societies Network has transferred $23.7 million to the Working Families Party via their fundraising arm, Working Families Organization Incorporated. Soros and his family members have also donated at least $865,000 directly to the party's New York affiliate since 2018. You can imagine that much of that money has probably ended up in the hands of Letitia James. Her political career is closely intertwined with this Working Families Party organization. Back in 2003, she became the first candidate that was backed by the party to win an elected office in New York. That was a city council seat in Brooklyn. At that time, she was just a single building slumlord. She had that 5-unit building in Brooklyn, and she would still say that it was only a 4-unit building to get around all the pesky laws that were dictating what she could and couldn't do. She declined to run as the WFP candidate during her successful 2018 campaign for Attorney General. She ran as a Democrat alongside Governor Andrew Cuomo, but publicly she accepted the party's endorsement during her 2022 re-election campaign. She has since become notorious for her unsuccessful lawfare against President Trump and his 2024 presidential campaign, and that case may remain active, but it's in the appellate court. It was turned over last year after more than $500 million in previously imposed penalties were, of course, rescinded. James herself later come under the investigation of the Department of Justice. That is also still ongoing, even though we are having some difficulty having a jury, which is not nullifying itself and deciding that Letitia James should not have charges brought against her. We have attempted on multiple occasions, and each subsequent attempt after the first successful attempt have been unsuccessful. Of course, the Department of Justice is currently in the process of appealing that first overturning, which removed Lindsay Halligan as the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. But George Soros has funded people like Letitia James, and it should be no surprise that they have consistently tried to destroy President Trump. You look at any of these states where the efforts to take down President Trump through lawfare were taking place, and a George Soros-funded candidate was there. Now, briefly, on the day that the new Epstein files began dropping, we went over a particularly disturbing incident that was lodged in the FBI files. It was a case of an alleged survivor who had said that her father had taken her to a number of specific locations in the United Kingdom to these elite sex parties where children were being abused, and that she was explicitly tortured using some type of electrodes. Now, we do know that this is a U.S. woman. She was supposedly trafficked to high-profile figures in the UK. They allege that they were driven to these gatherings by their father when they were between 6 and 8 years old, and they were drugged. And in these documents, we learn that she has a fairly good memory of some of these places she went. When we read about this, she named Frogmore Cottage. She specifically mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell, Prince Andrew, a group of other men watching as she got tortured. Of course, she also remembered Jeffrey Epstein, and she had the specific memory of Jeffrey Epstein taking pictures of her wearing a skirt, and these pictures, of course, were not appropriate. So what's important about this incident is that the police in the United Kingdom have reached out to the FBI and said, we were not aware of these allegations, and so we would like to reach out to you and ask for help. Now, this woman actually did speak with the FBI before Maxwell's bail hearing, which was prior to her trial here in the United States several years ago. These police in the United Kingdom are from Surrey. They say that they've done the investigation they can. They found no evidence of these allegations, so they're looking to gain any additional information they can from the FBI, perhaps get past the redacted information. Their official announcement said, we take all reports of child abuse seriously and encourage anyone with information in relation to these allegations to report this to us online or via 101. I don't know what 101 is, but she said in her specific account that she was molested by a man she later recognized as Epstein when he was in the news, and he took pornographic photographs of me in a skirt. If he kept those photographs might actually be inside these documents that are still being combed through. And you'll probably remember that just before we went on the Christmas break, the FBI and the DOJ at the Southern District of New York had announced that they had mysteriously found over 1 million new documents that they previously didn't know existed. But they were concurrent to the time that Maureen Comey, the daughter of James Comey, was there at the Southern District of New York. So I can only imagine who it might have been that squirreled them away into a location where people wouldn't find them until much, much later. All right, before we continue, I have a brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. My friends, if you still have not yet tried 1775 coffee, I implore you to give it a try. They still have some of those starter kits available, and in those starter kits, you're going to get their bold dark roast that hits hard, their smooth medium roast, which I'm drinking right now, and their Vitality Mushroom Coffee, which will give you clean energy and laser focus without the crash. It's all made from single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free beans, the highest quality you can get. Plus, you're also going to get a free gold spoon clip, a very strong frother, and a black 1775 tumbler. All told, it's $170 worth of coffee and gear, and it's all yours for the low price of $99. This is for every single person out there watching 1775 blow up on Rumble and wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. So head on over to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab yourself a starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. You can also use that QR code that you see on screen right there. And I want to thank them for continuing to support the show. Thank you very much to Rumble, and thank you very much to everybody else. All right, so getting into our next topic of inquiry. Do you remember Mayor Brian DePena? We spoke about him last week. Mayor Brian DePena was the mayor who required a translator when he was in court attempting to testify on behalf of a police chief who had his job taken away from him. But Brian DePena, the mayor of Lawrence, Massachusetts, barely speaks English. I don't know how the hell this guy got elected in the first place. Well, guess what? He just gave an interview with Mass Daily News, and you'll never believe what he said in the interview. He said that he entered the U.S. illegally by boat in Yola. He is an illegal alien, apparently. Take a listen to this. In my case, since I came, I got to turn the sound down. In my case, since I came to this country by boat, I had to give up my profession in the Dominican Republic. I was in charge of the cost development at the Caribeño Hotel on Duarte and 27th, and I left everything and got on a small boat and said, I'm going after a dream. And not only did we come, we've had many successes. Glory to God for the 30 years we've been here. Still doesn't know how to speak English after 30 years in the United States of freaking America. Creating a series of businesses that provide employment today and now as mayor. We are ensuring that this legacy is passed on to future generations, and the present generation assumes responsibility in such a way that not only the name of Dominicans, but of all Latin Americans can continue to advance and leave a difference for future generations and for, compared to that immigration that originally assumed the role of coming for 5 years. Yes, indeed, my case, since I came to this country by boat, I had to, etc. Anyways, that was the, it was replaying the entire thing. Yes, refresh. So the mayor of Lawrence, Massachusetts, has admitted to coming to the United States illegally. What is his status now? What is his status that he now is an elected official, the highest office in the city of Lawrence, Massachusetts, and he does not speak English? He's been here for 30 years, doesn't speak English, came to the United States of America illegally. Did he get legalized in some fashion? Was he given some special provision which allowed him to run for office? Or did they just not check to make sure that he was an American citizen? I sincerely hope that somebody would do an investigation into this and look into whether or not Mayor Brian DePena is legal or not. Now, I'd also like to give you yet another tragic story of a non-domiciled, read illegal alien trucker here in the United States. This time, a man who was traveling in Virginia also does not speak any English. His name is El Haji Karamoko Katara. He killed 3 people with his rig, including a 2-year-old child. He is a resident of Maryland, another Maryland man. He is of African descent, 5'8", 159 pounds. It's basically all we know about this guy, other than the fact that he killed 3 people. We can see here in the Appalachian podcast, breaking it down. This was, of course, a tractor-trailer crash. The 58-year-old Katara ran off the shoulder, struck a van carrying 6 passengers. The van driver was Lorraine Renee Williams. She was 65. Ebony Latasha Williams, 49, was also in the truck, along with 2-year-old Shaziah Leslie. All 3 of those individuals died due to injuries sustained in the accident, and Haji has been charged with reckless driving. I would hope that he would be charged with murder, or at the very least, that they would kick him out of the country. Now, what's so shocking to me is that you can come to the United States of America illegally. You can get yourself a driver's license. You don't have to speak English. You don't even have to read the signs on the road, but you can go to some place like California or New York or Illinois or Pennsylvania, and you can become a CDL. You can get yourself a CDL. You can become a long-haul truck driver, and then you can go out and you can just kill people, and nothing seems to happen. And as you are aware, the Department of Transportation recently changed their rules and demanded that California, Chicago, Pennsylvania, at all these places had to revoke the CDLs of people who were not legally here in this country. As I said this morning with Brian, American citizens have no standing to sue to ensure that their elections are secure, but you can be an illegal alien and you can sue the nation that took your driver's license away because you don't even speak English and you're not here legally in the first place. And there you go. You've got standing because they took your driver's license away. So a group of non-U.S. citizens and temporary resident truck drivers has launched a class action lawsuit against the California Department of Motor Vehicles. Their director is Steve Gordon. They accuse the agency of unlawfully planning to revoke nearly 20,000 CDLs due to administrative blunders. They never should have had those CDLs in the first place. However, this suit was filed on December 23rd in Alameda County Superior Court. They claim that the DMV's actions stem from federal pressure, you're damn right, under the Trump administration, but they violate state law by denying drivers the chance to correct errors or reapply. Well, you're going to have to get legal status in the United States of America. You're not going to get that. Yes, they are definitely going to lose S2G 109. But the fact that they allowed this case to be filed in the first place is just like a slap in the face to people who care. So the federal audit by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, of course, revealed that California had improperly issued thousands of non-domiciled CDLs. These are the licenses for non-U.S. citizens or permanent residents who had temporary work authorization. And they set expiration dates that exceeded the driver's legal presence documents. So these drivers happily operated under questionable credentials that prioritized diversity over safety and compliance until they got caught. And then once they got caught, they file a lawsuit. There's nothing more American than filing a lawsuit. In a response, the DMV sent cancellation notices in November and December to about 17,299 drivers. That was effective January 5th of 2026. That's when their licenses are going to expire. And then another 2,700 will expire mid-February. Many people believe the audit was done thanks to the Department of Transportation withholding $40 million in federal funds and cracking down on states for pretty much zero enforcement of CDL rules, which includes, by the way, English proficiency standards. You must speak English if you're going to be driving on American roads where everything is written in English. So the plaintiffs, including 5 anonymous immigrant drivers, I don't know if that's really an immigrant or if that's an illegal alien drivers, and the Jakara movement. That's a group representing Punjabi Sikh communities. Punjabi Sikhs happen to be like the largest represented group of people who have killed American citizens by doing U-turns on freeways like total morons. They allege the DMV's cancellations are arbitrary and capricious, punishing workers for the agency's own mistakes without due process. Well, guess what? This is a correction of the mistake. They are getting rid of these driver's licenses because you're not allowed to drive. Many of the people affected are Sikh immigrants, or they are Sikhs who are in the United States in one form or another, and they make up a large portion of the state's trucking industry, transporting freight, operating school buses, and handling essential services. I guarantee you there's an American that wants that job. So they said the DMV's actions will result in the loss of their hard-earned careers. So what? Go back to India. It will impose severe financial and emotional hardships. I don't care. Nobody cares. We don't care about you. We don't care about your family. We don't even want you here. Go back to your nation of origin. Use the skills there to become a truck driver. Have you guys ever seen the way people drive in India? It's no surprise that these people are killing people on American roads. Let me just show you what it looks like when you drive in India. These people are animals, absolute animals. Driving on Indian roads. Okay. Yeah, look at that. Just keeps going. Oh, totally crushed. Whoever was in that car is dead. They are completely covered in what appears to be cow manure. Yeah. Post midnight is the most dangerous time to be on Indian roads. Look at that. Just keeps driving. He don't care. Let's see. That's in China someplace. A death every 3 minutes. Why India's roads are among the world's deadliest. Okay. Those guys deserved what happened. I mean, they drove right in front of that car. In India, you're literally punished for following traffic rules. Bumper-to-bumper traffic for those staying in lane, while rule breakers drive the wrong side and they reach their destination faster. Look, nobody cares who's got the right of way. They're just like weaving in and out. Nobody stops. Oh, I think this is what we watched earlier. Yeah, see, this guy is going. Look at this guy was attempting to turn from the wrong lane into that bus. There is a crazy one that I saw of this dude driving down the road. Oh, here we go. Cars suddenly stop in the middle of the highway. What a moron. Drives off. Absolute garbage. Look at how many cars? Probably boom, boom, boom. Many different cars after them. Here's a perfect example of an Indian road. Anyways, I think I've made my point. It's no wonder these people are killing Americans on American roads. You add that type of behavior with the fact that people don't know how to speak English. They never bothered to pass the test. They had somebody do it for them. And of course, you're going to have people doing U-turns with big rig haulers on all kinds of streets where they're not supposed to, like the 95 down here. Crazy Boots. Thank you so much for that $100 rant. Victoria from Victoria, good to see you. Long Island, New York. I want to thank you guys for all your hard work. I rely on you for my everyday news. I'll see you in South Dakota in June. Awesome. I look forward to doing that. Happy and healthy New Year. XOOX. Good to see you, Victoria. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that generous support. All right. Now, let's talk about these Somalis, okay? I got a big section for you on Somali fraud. Now, I never told this story, but many years ago, I was driving my car. It wasn't a new car, but it was a new car to me. I want to say that, gosh, my daughter must have been like maybe 1 year old. She was at home. I had somebody watching her so that I could go to the grocery store, and I'm driving down the road. It was a 4-lane road. I'm in the second lane over from the left. There was some, she looked Somali to me, okay? She had a hijab on, and she had that Somali look about her. You know what I'm talking about. I'm the captain now. And she was driving a car that was much bigger than mine. It was like, I don't know, like an Escalade type vehicle. Might not have been an Escalade, might have been like the GMC version or something. And she just like broadsided me out of nowhere. She was going to try to turn in front of me, even though she was in the left-hand lane. She was going to try to take a right. It was ridiculous. So she runs into me, and I'm like, stop. She wouldn't stop. She was like, I got a husband. She pretended she didn't speak any English. She might not have spoke any English. And she forces me to follow her to her home, okay, which is like just a couple, like in the neighborhood, couple of streets up. She makes me follow her there because she won't stop, all right? And I'm like trying to keep up with her. Oh, thank you so much for the gifted subs. Freedom76, thank you for the 5 gift subscriptions. She makes me follow her all the way. Her husband comes out ranting and raving like he's straight out of an Al-Qaeda terror video. And he tells me that I hit her. And I was like, what are you talking about? They flipped the script, and I don't know what she said to him. Like, she hit me, and she's like, we got to pretend like he hit me or blah, blah, blah. I don't know. But he got violent, and he was going to try to come after me. And, I was like, you know what? Screw it. Okay. Like, there's barely any damage. It's already a used car. I don't have time for this. I need to get home to my kid. I was pissed, though. I was super pissed. And I was like, I resolve to never trust these people ever again. So anyways, we have a very similar situation that happened here with a number of Somali migrants. No idea on what their status is. But members of America's most infamous migrant group are purveyors of chaos. And it happened over this weekend. It could have resulted in a horrific tragedy. And guess what? They got away with it. This is in Columbus, Ohio. An American woman from Columbus, Ohio, posts this video on TikTok. It shows the aftermath of a major accident. These Somali immigrants who are purportedly had slammed directly into her while they were driving recklessly. They caused this massive wreck. Unsurprisingly, they tried to lie their way out of the trouble. They claimed the victim was actually the one at fault because she supposedly backed into them. But the police did not buy their story. Now, the woman reveals she was placed into the back of a police cruiser for her own safety because the cops thought it was too risky for her to exchange information with them. Yeah, these people, I was not about to tell them my name or my address or anything like that because they were wild-eyed. And I'm sure you've seen Somali women getting just as crazy as the Somali men. These guys were like, just waving their hands around, and she's flailing and she's screaming at me and she's pointing and shit. And I was like, I cannot even believe you people. You are guests in my country. So let's take a look at the video here. Ooh, I think I might have to go. Hang on. How do I turn the volume up? Oh, here it is.
I just had a hit and run, and I called the police. And I called the police, and they came over and did a police report, and I gave them a description of the vehicle, and some nearby police officers that were patrolling the area found the vehicle in a parking lot. And now the people that hit my car are telling the police that I hit them, that I backed into them. The police, of course, do not believe them. And the police officers, obviously, since I couldn't drive my car to the scene where these people were, gave me a ride in their car. So I am in the back of a police cruiser right now. And they also said that they didn't want me to speak directly to the people because they were kind of just being really boisterous and loud, and they didn't think it would be safe for me to exchange information. They said that they do not have insurance because they are from Somalia.
That was the other part. This woman did not have insurance either.
And they are planning to go back to Somalia. I'm not sure if any of that is even true.
Yeah, probably not true. Probably not true. So anyways, these people got away with it. Hit and run is an arresting offense. If the driver didn't leave in handcuffs and has a deportation order, then the cops are failing your community. Exactly what I thought, but they let them go without a ticket. Now, Somali community in the United States is the second largest in Columbus. There are around 60,000 people there. Only Minneapolis has more Somalis. It's about double that. I was checking around online. In 2023, it was closer to 60,000 that were officially in the Minneapolis area. It's basically double that now. And of course, in Columbus and across Ohio, they are also scamming exactly the same way they are scamming in Minneapolis. Now, you would think that not only with this being the biggest story all around the world, all across the various platforms on the internet, the local media in Minneapolis would report on this. Of course, you would be mistaken. The largest newspaper in Minnesota wrote their year-end review, and they failed to mention the Somali fraud scandal that is currently destroying their state government. in any reason whatsoever. The Minnesota Star Tribune is the paper that we're discussing here today. It's not only the largest paper in Minneapolis, it's the largest paper in the state of Minnesota. So maybe, just possibly, they might be a little interested in talking about this big story that is literally taking over the state and the consciousness of people all across this nation. But this is a left-wing rag, and there is media bias that's at play. So they don't want to report on it. They probably don't want to lose what few subscriptions they may have left. Some of them may be in the Somali community, and it likely is paid for with your tax dollars. But they just did this year-end review of the biggest stories, and this was not mentioned at all. Now, several journalists in Minnesota did comment on this. Justin Grage, who is, of course, a Minnesota resident, he's done some really good work. He said there wasn't a single mention of the fraud consuming our state. This is how the fraud was able to balloon into what it is today. The paper even tried to downplay the story earlier this month, where they said Trump claims Minnesota lost billions to fraud. The evidence to date isn't close. The fraud allegations have been used as a justification for federal immigration enforcement against Minnesota's Somali population. They are totally disinterested in discussing the problems they have in that state. There are a few problems in this story for the people on the left because, well, there's no Republicans who seem to be embroiled in this scandal. Minnesota is a socialist, Democrat-run state. It has been for decades. The story, of course, also involves exclusively the Somali community, and liberals depend on Somali votes and voter fraud to be able to continue winning their seats. And of course, they don't want to be labeled as racists. I don't care. You can call me a racist. It means absolutely nothing to me. But the Minnesota Star Tribune also is directly connected to Governor Tim Walz. There's a man by the name of Steve Grove. He is the publisher of the Minnesota Star Tribune. And before he got that job, guess what? He was employed by the Walz administration. Steve Grove is the publisher and CEO of the Minnesota Star Tribune for many years. He has been a high-flying executive in Silicon Valley, working for firms like Google and YouTube. Then in 2018, him and his wife, who worked for a venture capital firm investing in startups outside of the coasts, along with AOL founder Steve Case and now Vice President J.D. Vance, decided to return to Minnesota. Grove is from Minnesota. His recent book, How I Found Myself in the Midwest, a memoir of reinvention, is about leaving the global hub of innovation for what's often disparaged as flyover country. It's also a story of recommitting to civic and political involvement, as Grove went to work for Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and the, of course, future vice presidential nominee for the Democrats as head of the State Department of Economic and Workforce Development. He was in this role when the plandemic struck the state, making him the principal liaison with the business community struggling to cope with restrictions that were meant to stem the spread of COVID. Now, in a 2023 press release put out by Walz's own office, they said Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan today congratulated departing Commissioner Steve Grove and thanked him for his years of service at the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. Grove will depart from his position to serve as CEO and publisher of the Star Tribune. Commissioner Grove was appointed by Governor Walz in January of 2019. So I think that it's safe to say that Mr. Grove is protecting his old friend and former employer, that being Tim Walz. Now, this is not a new story. We've talked about this going back at least several years. I've been able to find reports of Somali fraud taking place in Minnesota all the way back to 2012. But here in 2022, a Somali man came forward and he warned about the fraud. I believe he spoke to Alpha News. And not only did he come forward and warn about the fraud, but the Somalis in Minnesota basically ran him out of the state. He blew the whistle, and they essentially tried to kill him, and he went back to Africa. And guess what? When he got back to Africa, they did the exact same thing to him. So he blew the whistle on his own community. He warned that people were suddenly buying mansions and flaunting wealth that nobody could explain, but he said it was an open secret and people were being kept quiet because they didn't want anything bad to happen to them. He particular spoke out against Feeding Our Future. That was the fake nonprofit scam that stole hundreds of millions of dollars in the food aid through the COVID relief funds. Now, after this was posted online, he was attacked. He was pepper sprayed when he went on a trip to Africa. And he said all of a sudden there was a boom and people were buying very expensive homes and posting about those homes. Nobody knew, but everybody knew, but nobody had the courage to speak out about it because they understood the repercussions. Now, he speaks in Somalian, so I'm going to turn down the audio and I will decipher this. Are you sure that's a man?
All of a sudden there was a boom and people were buying very expensive homes and posting about those homes.
Where was all the money coming from?
Everybody knew, but nobody had the courage to speak about it because they understood the repercussions. So I decided to speak out.
Afraid of repercussions for speaking out in the Twin Cities, Abdi went on a trip to Africa early this year. When he got there, he says he was attacked and pepper sprayed for information he put online regarding Feeding Our Future.
All of a sudden there was a boom and people were buying very expensive homes and posting about those homes.
Where was all the money coming from?
Everybody knew, but nobody had the courage to speak about it because they understood the repercussions. So I decided to speak out.
Afraid of repercussions for...
All right, so they attacked this man for doing the right thing. I'd also like to refer you back to Tim Walz's own statements, which were made during the vice presidential debate, when Tim Walz brags about how he and his administration made it easier for people to start their own childcare businesses. Tim Walz has also very recently made legal has also made legal the practice of paid childcare leave. You get 20 weeks to spend time with your kid. The only thing is you don't have to actually be employed in order to get the money. You don't even have to prove that you have a kid to be able to get the money. But here is Tim Walz in the debate talking about how he did such a wonderful thing, bringing all this money for childcare businesses. It totally backfired. Oh, I got to refresh.
We in Minnesota passed a paid family and medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start. The family works better. We stay in their employers. We get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. And so a paid family medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as child...
Wait. I take that back. Don't go to the businesses. Don't go to the businesses. Please, whatever you do, don't go to the businesses.
Care on this. You have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take either our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family and medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families, and make it easier to have the children that you want.
I love JD's face. That was such a good debate, man. I had a great time watching that one. All right, so how did this backfire? Well, I said we could go back to 2012. We'll just go. We went to 2022. Let's go back to 2018. All right, this is surveillance video from law enforcement back in 2018. There was a criminal prosecution against a series of Somali daycare fraudsters. In the surveillance video, Somali parents take their kids to daycare, they check them in, and then guess what? They leave a few minutes later and they take their kids with them because nobody wants to watch those snot-nosed brats. The owners of the daycare would then bill the state for the full day of childcare, And of course, the parents would get a kickback for being in on the fraud. Of course, Tim Waltz, Ilhan Omar, AG Keith Ellison, they also get their own kickbacks. But Somali fraudsters have been stealing from the taxpayers for years. And Tim Waltz and his administration knew about it. They tried to cover it up. This is all coming back to haunt them.
Order for the scheme to work, the daycare centers need to sign up low-income families that qualify for child care assistance funding. These surveillance from a case prosecuted by Hennepin County. They show parents checking their kids into a center only to leave with them a few minutes later. Sometimes no children would show up. But either way, the center would bill the state for a full day of child care. This video from that same case shows a man handing out envelopes of what are believed to be kickback payments to parents who are in on the fraud.
Where was the money going?
I don't know exactly where it went, but it...
Order for this...
Well, it was going directly into their pockets. I mean, these people don't work anyways, so they didn't really need childcare. But I'll tell you what, they could take an extra couple of $100 a week when it comes down to it. Now, another aspect of the fraud, this is directly from Nick Shirley's video, which this has not been in at least in a wide sense reported in terms of a criminal investigation. But another fraud that they have is non-emergency medical transportation companies in Minnesota. These are also billing to the taxpayers. So these are basically people who have to go to the doctor, or I don't know, it's like Uber, but the state pays for it. The research shows, this gentleman who did the research, is that there are 1,020 total non-emergency medical transportation companies in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and over 800 of them are Somali owned, and they just get checks for driving people, or rather for owning cars and not driving people.
I started to see all these transportation companies going around, and it was always a Somali driver, and I said, well, that's great. They're out there transportation contributing, but they never had a passenger, never, ever once. And I said, well, what is all this transportation? What are they doing? So then I found out that in Minnesota, they have something called non-emergency medical transportation. So this is going to the dentist's office, therapy, whatever it might be. And I said, well, how many of these companies are there? And the research came back that there are 1,020 of them, and more than 800 of them are Somali owned. State of Minnesota ever cross-checks to see if any rides were ever actually provided. All they did was write the check. I started to...
It's exactly like the home healthcare businesses. It's exactly like the daycare businesses. It's exactly like the Feeding Our Future fraud. Now, I mentioned Nick Shirley. If you haven't seen his full 42-minute video that he did over the weekend, I would highly suggest that you watch it. I watched it with Lisa and the kids over the weekend while we were driving around. This currently is sitting at 118 million views on X alone. I don't even know what it's sitting at on YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and check real quick and see, because this video has quite literally blown up, and it's really got the internet in a tizzy. People are really paying attention. They were already paying attention, but now they're paying attention even more. All right, so, oh yeah, it's sitting at 1.6 million views on YouTube, so 118 million views on X. They discovered during one afternoon of driving around to all of these different locations, and of course, one of them was the Quality Learning Center.
Is enabling
Quality Learning Center, which is supposed to be the Quality Learning Center. Every single place that they would go to, they would knock on the door. If someone came to the door, Nick would say, I'm looking to put my son, little Joey, into a daycare center. Can I get an application? And they'd be like, why? You're like, well, because you're a daycare center and I've got a kid who needs to have daycare. And they're like, no, this is not a good fit for little Joey. Most of the people would never respond. Now, a lot of these places have multiple childcare centers at the exact same location. You've got individual companies that are both registered for like 80 to 100 kids, and they're both in the same location, the exact same address, and neither of them are real. Right here, here's one, the Mako Child Care Center, 612-208-0717. You've got another one that had the phone number for Tim Waltz's own office listed as the phone number on their sign. You could call that phone number. It would be Tim Waltz's office that would answer. Obviously, Tim Waltz is not taking applications for these people to send their kids to these places. Most of them didn't answer at all. All of them were receiving millions upon millions of dollars. Here at this one, some people did come out, but they refused to answer any questions. You had a guy who said that he worked there. They asked him, where are all the children? And he's like, I don't know. I don't work here anymore, actually. Oh, okay. So you don't work here. Did you ever see a child when you worked here before? I don't know. All of them. I don't know. They all basically got deaf, dumb, and stupid as soon as anybody started asking questions. And then you had some white liberal broad who showed up with a megaphone and a whistle and was like, don't come out. ICE is here. ICE is here. And they're like, we're not ICE. We are here doing due diligence, checking to see. Here's one that doesn't even have a sign. It's literally just a yellow building, but they are licensed for 137 children, Minnesota Best Childcare, and in fiscal year 2025, they received $3.4 million in funding. You had figures that ranged from just under $1 million to, I don't know, over $6 million for a single year. Here is the infamous Quality Leering Center, just for anybody who thought I was a moron for spelling it wrong on the thumbnail. No, it really is Quality Leering Center. It's a learning center for children that is done by a non-English speaker who doesn't know how to spell, or maybe they had AI make the sign. And you can see here, it is a business that doesn't have anybody in there. Here's that annoying liberal woman who shows up and doesn't know how to shut her mouth. 99 children licensed for this location, $1.9 million going to them in fiscal year 2025. And then Nick and David were literally tracked all over town by a group of Somalis. Here is a Minnesota resident. He lives right next door. He's got his own business. Nick asks him, in the 8 years you've been living and working here, have you ever seen a child enter this daycare center? He's like, no, come to think of it, no, I haven't. I've never seen a child enter this place. So then Nick tells him just how much money they're getting, and he's pissed. He's a local Minnesota resident, lifelong resident of the area. His business isn't getting millions of dollars. Here's another one. 90 children at the Future Leaders Early Learning Center on Chicago Avenue in Minneapolis, $3.67 million they received in 2025. It is the exact same story over and over and over again. This girl answers the door and she refuses to give an application. Oh, the manager's not here. I can't answer any questions. Unknown. I don't know what's going on. I'm here working and I'm supposed to be taking care of children, but there are no children. This guy directly tells Nick, because his kid's white, that Joey is not going to fit in here. No, unfortunately, you can't come in. And look at that. He's got a couple of broads in hijabs inside. Those might be his mothers or his sisters or his wives. Who knows? Let me actually play you the video of the phone number for Tim Waltz's own office answering when the viewer calls in. Now, this wasn't discovered by Nick. This was actually discovered by an intrepid viewer who was just calling the numbers that were on the signs. And he was like, no way, I can't believe it. That is as ballsy as it gets. What that tells me is that the Somalis that are operating these fraudulent businesses are all too aware that nobody from the state is going to be cross-referencing any of the information that they put down on these applications. And they know that it's perfectly safe to put the number for Tim Waltz's office as their own phone number. It is completely unbelievable. Take a listen to this.
So guys, this is absolutely mind-blowing. So I was watching the most recent video by Nick Shirley exposing these daycare centers. Now, they're going daycare to daycare, and the next one that they go to is called Sweet Angel Childcare. This is where they show up to. And this is
Sweet Baby Angel Childcare. You can see here it's listed on Google. It's also listed on the sign on the front of the building. The phone number is 561 201-3400. Feel free to call Tim Walz's office and ask for an application for your little Joey to Sweet Angel Childcare. I'd love to hear what he has to say.
Business right here, Sweet Angel Childcare in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, listen to where this phone number goes to when you call this childcare center. Just wait for it.
Thank you for contacting the office of Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. Our office is located at 130 State Capitol at 75 Reverend.
Oh my God.
The balls on these people. The big bull-sized balls on these Somali scammers, knowing that they can do that and still receive millions and millions of dollars. Now, shortly after Nick's report came out, the Small Business Association and Kelly Loeffler announced that they were done. They were cutting off all grants through the Small Business Association to the entire state of Minnesota. This is a big move. So she says there will be no more grants to Minnesota. And she wrote on X, excuse me, Benny Johnson wrote on X that he had shared the video with Kelly Loeffler, and she said, I'm taking immediate action. She said that it was, of course, due to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz refusing to enforce laws governing small business and because of his allowance and facilitation of the fraud. SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler tells me she is disgusted and sickened by Nick Shirley's expose of Somali small business fraud and is therefore taking immediate action. SBA is cutting off and, even more importantly, clawing back all SBA grants that went to Minnesota effective immediately. That means that the grants they've already given, they are going to legally come and take them from the people that they granted them to. So if you were a Minnesota small business that got an SBA grant to start your childcare business, they're going to come and they're going to seize your bank account and they're going to take that money. Take as much of that money as you possibly can. She says the Trump administration is now focusing on state officials. These are the people who built and made possible the industrial scale crime ring that the Somalians are operating that is working off hardworking Americans. The scope of this international scam is still unknown, Kelly Loeffler said, likely in the billions. Pending further review, SBA is freezing all grant funding to the state in order to stop the rampant waste of taxpayer dollars and uncover the full depth of fraud. Now, the sad thing is, undoubtedly, there are real businesses in the state of Minnesota that would probably benefit from being able to get some of this SBA money. Perhaps there was none left because the Somalians took it all. Now that it's not going to be given to anybody, perhaps businesses are not going to be able to start. Minnesota likely may end up in some type of major recession as a result. And that is the unfortunate truth of this. There are going to be real people, real businesses who suffer. I need to say thank you very much to our good friend Kitsko. She also dropped a subscription for somebody over there. Whoever got it, congrats. She says, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, Zach and Lisa. 250 years of independence, and the party is next year, all year long. Doge goals too. Amen. I hope that the entirety of this government takes as much from Minnesota as they possibly can. All right. Now, Tim Walz has actually responded to Nick Shirley. And so we're going to go ahead and take a look at that response. You may be unsurprised to learn that Tim Walz takes the low road and accuses Nick Shirley of being a white supremacist. But first, I need to tell you about our friends over here on Rumble. If you or someone you love struggles with blood sugar and A1C, You need to hear this message. It's well known that the expensive meds and the popular shots many people are taking have dangerous side effects. Well, Creator's Bounty has developed the perfect alternative. It's an herbal supplement. It's called Elohitrim, and Elohitrim is a 100% natural formula that's proven to dramatically lower your blood sugar and A1C. It uses 7 healthy ingredients. There are no stimulants, no junk. Just these 7 ingredients would cost you over $150 if you bought them all separately. But this is the best part. There are no bad side effects, only good ones. We're talking about sugar cravings gone, inflammation reduced, and stable energy all day with 0 crashes. Seriously, most people are getting better results than they did on those harsh medications, but without the risk. Elohitrim is made in the USA at an FDA-registered facility. It's fully tested and backed with a no-questions-asked 90-day money-back guarantee, so give it a try. If it doesn't work, you can get your money back. The friendly folks at Creator's Bounty offer fast and free shipping 5 days a week from their location in Oklahoma. So head on over to creatorsbounty.com/rumble and take advantage of this special offer today. You can use that QR code over there and get yourself up to 50% off. Thank you very much to Elohitrim and Rumble. All right, so Tim Walz calls Nick Shirley a white supremacist for reporting on over $111 million in Somali daycare fraud in one day. One day, Nick Shirley and an intrepid Minnesota resident go out and hit the streets, and they identify, proof positive, hundreds of millions of dollars in fraud. So, in that 42-minute video, I think it is pretty obvious that Minnesota has a big problem. Now, GOP whip Tom Emmer lashed out at Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and asked him, $4 million of hard-earned tax dollars going to an education center that can't even spell learning correctly. Care to explain this one, Tim Walz? The only thing is that Emmer, along with Keith Ellison, started the Somali caucus of Minnesota. So I don't know how much I trust Tim Emmer. I think maybe he's trying to jump on a bandwagon that he knows is better than continuing to support Somali fraudsters. So Walz said that this is what happens when they scapegoat, and this is what happens when they no longer hide the idea of white supremacy. Absolute garbage. Let's take a listen to Tim Walz himself. And Nick Shirley appeared on Fox News this morning to discuss his investigation.
This is what happens when they target communities for their own benefit. This is what happens when they scapegoat. And this is what happens when they no longer hide the idea of white supremacy.
So it sounds to me, Nick, that Governor Tim Walz is saying that you and others that are out there trying to expose this, you're doing it because you're white supremacists. What is your response to him?
Yeah, Tim wants votes. There are entire apartment complexes where white people have been pushed out of these apartment complexes because Somalians have taken over and they're inside of these towns like Minneapolis where they can go get votes from these people. And if you have 100,000 people that will vote for you because you're going to enable and let this stuff happen, and because you're going to call a white person racist for calling out facts, this is what's going to happen to a state like Minnesota. Minnesotans, they say Minnesota nice, but they are very upset. And I fully understand why they're upset, because they don't have a governor who's actually working for them. He's actually working against them.
Nick, your video's been viewed 93 million times. What do you think will be the result of this? Do you think that things will change because of bringing attention to this, or do you think it'll be much the same, swept under the rug and keep moving forward?
Yeah, there better be change. People are demanding it. The investigations have been launched just from that video alone. And so there better be change because, like I said, we work way too hard to be paying taxes. We work way too hard to be not knowing where our money's going. And at the end of the day, the people in the government, they work for us. We don't work for them. And so it's their responsibility to hold these people accountable. And so if there's not something that's happened, people are going to be very frustrated. And so if President Trump's watching this, it's time to really get down to nitty gritty and to make a difference in this place of Minnesota that is pretty much like Somaliland right now.
So I also think that Nick would have a defamation case against Tim Walz for suggesting that he's a white supremacist for pointing out obvious fraud, $111 million ripped from the pockets in 1 year from the Minnesota taxpayers. Now, I do have a bit of a button up, a bit of good news for the tale of Quality Leering Center. It would appear that, this is the wrong one. Hold on just a second. it would appear that the Minnesota Department of Children today announced that the Quality Leering Center has officially been shut down. All right. Now, in the past, what happens is that something like the Quality Leering Center gets shut down, and then they immediately open up under a new name. So it remains to be seen exactly how this is going to be handled going forward. If they're going to allow a new business to come in and set up shop, then do the exact same type of fraudulent activity. But as it stands right now, the Quality Leering Center is no more. And once again, for the smarties who thought that I was spelling incorrectly, no, it really is spelled Quality Leering Center. That is not a joke. Also, it would appear that there are a series of impeachment actions which are about to begin in the state of Minnesota against Tim Walz. Now, this is going to leave the state of Minnesota struggling to find a candidate who is willing to take on the job as the Democrat in the state. I believe that the lieutenant governor would become the governor, but she is a moron as well. She is another white socialist liberal woman in her middle age who was recently photographed wearing a hijab to make the Muslim men that she was standing near feel more comfortable because, of course, she and other Democrat socialists kneel and lick the boots of whomever is their better. But Minnesota Representative Kristen Robbins, who recently, she's like the top Republican in the state, she recently was running the hearings in the Minnesota State House talking about all of this fraud. She's now saying that Minnesota lawmakers are looking to impeach Governor Walz because of the rampant Somali fraud, specifically that was uncovered by Nick Shirley, even though there were many billions of dollars that were discovered before that. It's just that Nick has an audience, and a lot more people listened to Nick. So she said Tim Walz has turned a blind eye for 7 years. We need to clean house at the executive branch. It's going to be a little bit more than just cleaning house at the executive branch, but you got to start somewhere.
Absolutely. I called for the governor to resign several weeks ago. I just think his dereliction of duty is unconscionable. These whistleblowers have been sounding the alarm for years. We've had hearings for almost a year now, holding his agencies accountable. He's not fired anyone. He's not taken steps to stop the fraud on the front end, and he continues to make excuses. So I would absolutely want him to resign, as I said weeks ago, or I know others are looking at articles of impeachment, but he is responsible. He has turned a blind eye for 7 years, and we need to clean house in the executive branch.
And I know, Representative, you're running for governor as well to unseat him. Many of us are left with many questions.
However, Mike Lindell is way far above her in the polls. So you may just want to stay at the State House, my dear. Let Mike Lindell come in. If anybody deserves to be governor of Minnesota, if anybody is going to clean up Minnesota, it's going to be the Pillow Man.
About this, he was almost the vice president of the United States, and we see billions of dollars under his nose that were just wasted. What would that look like on the national level if he was the vice president of the United States?
Oh, it would be terrible. I'm so grateful that President Trump led the DOGE effort to clean up the federal government, and we need to continue to work to clean up the state government.
Yes, there needs to be a DOGE done by the federal government in the state of Minnesota. Now, the Quality Leering Center, as I said, this is not the first child care development business to take to be in this location. They had already been raided by the FBI back in 2015, but of course it was a different business at that time. At that time, it was the Salama Child Care Center, and these Somalis just obtained another license, and they made up a new name, and they put it in the same address. They probably didn't change anything else about it, but the FBI has been aware of the people running this place since 2015. As a report at the time, a Minneapolis child care center is getting its license revoked after it was discovered the owner had a previous license taken away at its center in St. Cloud, Minnesota. The Salama Child Care Center at 1411 Nicollet Avenue was raided by the FBI and the Minneapolis Department of Human Services on Wednesday. In the process of executing a search warrant, state officials discovered that the Minneapolis and St. Cloud centers had the same license holder. Under state law, the same license holder and or controlling individual may not hold any DHS license for 5 years following the revocation. The Minneapolis Center has until Friday to appeal. The Salama Child Care Center in St. Cloud had its license revoked on June 17th, 2014. DHS says the center was closed due to serious and chronic violations. It seems like all of them have serious and chronic violations, on top of not even having any children there. But why would you invest money in a business that you're not even going to be using? It's just an empty warehouse, essentially, so that you can throw some old toys in there and put on a good show if anybody shows up. One of those instances included the time a 4-year-old left the center unattended. May have something to do with why they just never bothered to have kids come around anymore. I guess at this time, staff were not aware that the child was missing for more than an hour. I read about another incident of how one of these learning care centers was shut down because the woman who was watching the kids picked a kid up by their ankles and then threw them on a cot and told them to go to sleep. Here is another several examples in Minneapolis. Again, I said many people started looking and they started identifying child care centers that didn't seem to be real businesses. If you're in Minnesota, you can use this website right here, licensinglookup.dhs.state.mn.us. Now, the account that shared this was Crime Watch Minneapolis, and they said one of our followers found 4 of these learning centers in one block in his Columbia Heights neighborhood, including 2 in the same building, very, very similar to exactly what Nick and David found over the weekend. Of course, most of these locations were boarded up or they looked sus. All of them have blacked out windows. You can't see inside. This one actually has a piece of plywood covering the front door, so it's unlikely that any children are ever entering through this door right there. Here you can see another one, child care center. Didn't even bother to put anything else on it. Notice face mask is required to enter. Here is yet another one, another child care center, same thing. But check out your neighborhood, do some drive-bys and see what you see, snap pics from a safe distance and DM them to us with your results. Now, I had already mentioned a number of occasions, Ilhan Omar, Keith Ellison, Tim Waltz, all directly profiting from this massive fraud that's taking place there. Now, as this all started to come out, the attention began to be paid a little bit more closely on Ilhan Omar and her rich white husband. Turns out that her husband was a venture capitalist, which of course is an all-cash business. He also owned a $30 million firm. Now, once people started looking at their businesses, he and his ilk started shutting down their website. They began scrubbing the names of people who were associated with his company. The attention started to be a little bit too much, and people started noticing that, wow, during the same time that all of this welfare fraud was going on, Ilhan Omar went from having a net worth of negative $49,000 to now, I don't know, something like $30 million. But this venture capital firm that is run by Tim Minette, the Democrat socialist husband of Democrat socialist Ilhan Omar, Somali migrant refugee, has now removed the names and bios of their top officers and all of their advisors from their website. This comes in the very center of the Minnesota Democrat facing intensifying questions about her family's explosive wealth surge. She was near bankruptcy when she took office in 2019, and the largest welfare fraud scandal in U.S. history took place in her district, and suddenly she's a multimillionaire. In this bombshell report coming out of the New York Post, Rose Lake Capital, which Minette founded in 2022, has scrubbed the details of 9 key figures between September and October of 2025. Of course, intrepid investigators on the internet were smart enough to back up their website onto the Wayback Machine. But the list included high-profile Democrats like former Obama ambassador to Bahrain, Adam Areli, ex-senator and Obama ambassador to China, Max Baucus, DNC finance chair associate Alex Hoffman, former DNC treasurer William Darrow, and Keith Mestrich, the ex-CEO of Amalgamated Bank. At one time, Amalgamated Bank was known as the institutional bank of the Democrat Party. None of these people, it should be mentioned, have been charged with any fraud. However, the timing coincides with federal prosecutors announcing charges against 8 more suspects in the massive Minnesota welfare scam, 6 of whom are of, you guessed it, Somali descent. Omar is a prominent member of the far-left squad, which of course is a little bit smaller now after Cori Bush was kicked out of Congress. She entered Congress in 2019 with a net worth of negative $25,000 and negative $65,000, burdened by student loans and car debt with no assets to her name. When you jump to 2024, her financial disclosures now show assets ballooning to between $6 and $30 million. How could that happen? How is that possible? How do you get all of that money in the midst of this welfare fraud happening in your own district? Well, a lot of people are connecting the dots to the $9 billion in Minnesota welfare fraud and the possibility that Ilhan Omar is getting her own kickbacks. As you know, the scandal revolves around the theft of billions of dollars from government-funded children's meal programs, exclusively when talking about the Feeding Our Future scam. Nearly 90 people have been charged so far, and that includes at least 3 who have direct ties to Ilhan Omar. We've gone over them in the past. Up to this point, she has not yet been implicated or charged. Fraudsters allegedly claimed millions of phantom meals that were never served, and they pocketed the subsidies that were meant for hungry kids. Salim Ahmed Saeed, who is the co-owner of Safari Restaurant in Minneapolis, was convicted in August of stealing over $12 million for fabricating 3.9 million meals. His restaurant hosted the victory party for Omar in 2018. And video from 2020 shows Omar praising the program that he was using to steal all of that money. And she spoke in Somali saying, every day, Safari provides 2,300 meals to children and their families. And she was handing out food trays herself at that time. There's another convicted fraudster, Guhad Hashi Saeed. He worked on Omar's 2018 and 2020 campaigns. He pled guilty in August to running a fake food site that claimed 5,000 daily meals. He netted $3.2 million in ill-gotten gains. Her campaign received $7,400 in donations from at least 3 of these now convicted individuals. She claims she returned the money after the scandal broke, but we can't really prove that. She pushed the Meals Act in Congress in 2020, which critics have rightfully pointed out loosened the oversight on these programs. This is what paved the way for the fraud. She was asked last week if she regretted the legislation, and she said absolutely not. It did help feed kids. Maybe a couple, but not really. But Minette's firm, Rose Lake Capital, this appears to be where the real money is. He reported assets under management of $60 billion, despite operating out of a WeWork office in Washington, D.C. If you don't know, WeWork is like an office share location. So you've got a bunch of empty offices and like conference tables with the ability to get access to Wi-Fi. People pay a very small amount, like $500 a month, and you can walk in there and work anytime that you want. And this guy was managing $60 billion. That's a shit ton of money. That is way more than a lot of real firms operate in these sorts of fields. In 2023, it was valued, this company, at less than $1,000 in Omar's disclosures. But by the next year, it jumped to between $5 and $25 million. If you don't think that happened because of Ilhan Omar's brand new connections, I don't know what to tell you. The firm boasts deep global networks built from on-the-ground work in more than 80 countries, but they don't actually give any information about exactly what it is they do. Now, the other business that Minette operates, a California winery called Est Crew LLC, faced its own fraud allegations. In October of 2023, there was an investor that sued Minette for allegedly swindling $900,000 by misrepresenting the business. That fraud case involved a wine investor suing Minette in October of 23, accusing him of swindling that $900,000 as he fraudulently misrepresented that Est Crew LLC was a legitimate company. Minette claimed he simply struggled to build a business during the pandemic. The case was, of course, settled out of court. It was only $900,000, and he's got $60 billion just laying around. I mean, you want something like that to go away, don't you? Now, the winery once sold gimmicky wines like Blockchain and The Devil's Lie, and they saw their value skyrocket from between $15,000 and $50,000 back in 2022 to between $1 and $5 million in 2024. That is a return of 9,900%. Most businesses would give their left nut to have a return like that. But now, today, it appears defunct. There are no wine sales. The website is totally broken. The phone number is disconnected, and there are no social media posts since 2023, right around the time they got sued. Now, Ilhan Omar has had ethics complaints filed against her previously for quietly funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars into her husband's consulting firm. In total, Minette has received a whopping $878,930.65 from Omar's campaign since he began working with her in 2018. Lots of people raising eyebrows about exactly what the heck's going on there. Political watchdogs, political law experts say this practice is essentially political cronyism. Paul Kamenar is counsel for the National Legal and Policy Center. He didn't want to mince words when talking about this. He said there's a lot of strange things going on. She was basically broke when she came into office, and now she's worth perhaps up to $30 million. She needs to come clean on those assets. Now, as you know, President Trump said not that long ago, does Ilhan know these people? Talking about the fraudsters. Are they from her wonderfully managed home country of Somalia? And he said we should kick her out if it turns out that she is not only a fraudulently obtained immigration recipient, but also if she's a fraudster herself. Now, Chip Roy, speaking about this subject specifically and mentioning that the same thing. We got to get Ilhan Omar out of this country because she appears to be a Somali fraudster, just like all of her kind back in Minneapolis.
Certainly not. I mean, he's certainly supportive of whatever they're doing. And this is one of the other things that we need to address is the extent to which members of Congress find themselves getting wealthy while they're in Congress. In this case, it appears by being completely in bed with all of the fraudulent activity that's going on in Minnesota. Of course, we should investigate this. Of course, should we look into what they're scrubbing from their website. I think we've got to explore this as far as we can, including potentially looking into denaturalizing and removing Ilhan Omar if she's violated our laws. And by the way, we should also ban stock trading among members of Congress, since we're talking about the wealth of Congress, and I have a bill to do that, and I hope we will do that next year. Mike Johnson, the Speaker, is working with us to do that. We've got to stop all of this flow of dollars that is corrupting our system, empower the American people to do what they do best, and we've got to pause immigration. I introduced a bill to pause immigration. Certainly not.
Pause immigration entirely. Stop letting these people get rich, because when they get rich, they turn on their constituents. They turn on their constituents to get rich. Now, more good news. DHS on the ground this morning, pumping up the actions in Minneapolis. They're no longer just going to the homes and businesses of the worst of the worst. They are now going door to door to suspected fraud sites, and they are engaging in investigations and arrests as we speak. Here is Homeland Security Investigations, which generally covers weapons trafficking and human trafficking, going into a Somali business to shake some people down, get them arrested.
Have you seen anybody come and go from there?
Yesterday I was working in Jordan. I go around, so yesterday I was not here. Okay. So I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Okay.
All right. Now, this is the real deal. We need to get these people, and we need to get them out fast. I saw some other images from Homeland Security. Here we go.
For your business. Your business, they came a few days ago, they left a paper, notice of inspection.
What's your first? I can welcome.
Hit the paperwork. Where about you from? From Homeland Security Investigations. Okay?
Get them. Get them all. Get them out of here.
provide the dimension, this is the location, this is where everybody comes.
Are there any subcontractors or anything you guys deal with?
Like what?
Say like other businesses that you partner with that you use for a service of any kind, maybe transportation or anything like that? No.
We provide usually parents, and they come like this, drop the kids, they go to us, and then we take care of them.
Awesome. And who actually oversees the receipt of those documents?
Get rid of them, every single one. Now, Andrew Torba, the founder of Gab, has put together a couple of tools that you can use at home to determine where money is going. So at daycaredata.com, you can use this to browse through 79,000 daycare providers. You can search FEC records to see who they are donating to politically. Spoiler alert, they only donate to Democrats. And it tells you how much government funding each provider has received. This, I believe, was just put together over the weekend in response to Nick Shirley's video. Andrew is a great guy, and you should definitely be using this tool. You can also go to his other tool, which is youfundthis.com. This is a government funding transparency tracker. So if you want to know where your taxpayer dollars are going, you can now see exactly which businesses are receiving federal grants, SBA loans, and state subsidies. They've built a searchable database tracking over 55,000 or more funding records and $46 billion in subsidies and loans that are going to businesses like gas stations and fuel businesses, hotels and motels, restaurants and franchises, convenience stores, call centers, dry cleaners, nail salons. You can search businesses by name, by state, by amount, by funding type. You can see exactly who got what from whom and when. It's real data offering you, the American taxpayer, real transparency. It's built by 100% based American patriots who believe that you have the right to know. And this is only just the beginning, scratching the surface. There is a lot more data out there. They've only got this here so that they can get you started and you can begin taking a look. As an example, you can go through and take a look at some of these screenshots. You can see how much federal funding is going to exactly what types of businesses. And then you can drill down and see if, hey, maybe the gas station that I go to, I've noticed that seems to be run by foreigners. You can see exactly how much money they are receiving. Now, another user here, Beaver D on X, has also created another tool called SomaliScan.com. And SomaliScan.com now shows things like PPP loans that are going to daycares. You can see the loan amounts. You can also see the locations around the country. It's not just Minnesota. There also appears to be a lot of money going to Texas, California, Washington, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Tennessee, North Carolina. Check this out, SomaliScan.com. And when you go there, there is, again, lots more information that you can find out. It's not just PPP loans, it's healthcare money, COVID relief fraud, SNAP subsidies, all of it available, once again, at SomaliScan.com. Check out all three of these various tools because I think that it's going to give you a lot of information. So now, accountability. Great that Kelly Loeffler at SBA has shut down the SBA spigot. But, of course, Congress needs to not only write strongly worded letters, but also do investigations of their own so that they can catalog this and then figure out how to shut down the money pipeline because Congress has the power of the purse. In response to Nick Shirley's video, Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has also expanded his own investigation that was already in play.
Now the federal government is getting involved here. House Oversight Committee, it's widening its probe, inviting state lawmakers to come testify and other federal departments. So let's bring in now Chairman James Comer. He leads the charge over at Oversight, and he joins us now.
Let me say thank you very much to Surter, who says those buildings with all the scam businesses in them are most likely owned by the scammers. Yes, they are 100% owned by the scammers. Forsaken Angel, thank you so much, buddy. $20 Rumble rant. He says, I really hope the DOJ cleans up the judiciary so we can bring swift justice to this fraud, get our money back, prosecute all involved, and extreme that would make others never consider doing this again. I agree. I think that they need to go as hard as possible. I think that for a lot of people, impeaching these judges who have allowed this stuff to take place is the ultimate goal. I think that they should pass a law that says that you cannot be a judge of any type in the United States unless you not only hold a law degree, but you've actually practiced law. You also need to be an American citizen. And you need to have some type of regular ethics investigations that go on to sort of ensure the tracking of your implementation of the law. If you have, say, over a certain amount of criminals that you let off within a given index of metrics, then perhaps you can get removed from your position. Thank you, Forsaken Angel. Also, 2812 VPJ says, follow the money. It ain't brain science, federal DOJ. No, it is not. And that is exactly what's happening. Forsaken Angel also says, this only proves all form of taxation is theft to we the people. You are 100% correct.
Good morning to you. Tell us about who you're bringing in, who you want to see on Capitol Hill, and what questions do you want to ask them?
Well, the most important people are the state whistleblowers, the state employees who put that tweet out that we all are familiar with a few weeks ago that alerted America to the massive fraud. These state employees also allege that they had warned both Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison for years that this fraud was occurring, and yet nothing was taking place. So we're going to bring the state employees in. We're going to get their sworn testimony. We appreciate their bravery in coming forward. We're also going to bring in state lawmakers and Minnesota mayors because the walls are caving in on Tim Walz. This massive amount of fraud is affecting and impacting every citizen of Minnesota.
But more than that, it is affecting every citizen of every state where this fraud is taking place, and it extends far beyond. Now, how many times have I told you guys, just because you don't hear something, you don't see a press conference, you don't see a press release by the DOJ, or you don't see somebody tweeting about something, it doesn't mean that something isn't happening. Well, Attorney General Pam Bondi has directly responded to Nick Shirley's investigation, and she says the DOJ has actually been investigating this for months. So far, we have charged 98 individuals, 85 of Somali descent, and more than 60 have been found guilty of court. We have more prosecutions coming. Buckle up, lawmakers. That is a message not only to the Somali scammers, but of course to the lawmakers in Minnesota who have enabled this fraud. I think that the indictments are going to be coming very quickly for many of these people in other areas of Minnesota Somali fraud that has been recently given a lot of attention. Of course, in this instance, Pam is specifically referring to feeding our future. But as you all know, the fraud extends far beyond that. As Nick said in his in his interview, we must have total accountability. People have got to be charged. It's not enough to simply charge these initial 98 people and then allow it all to just be passed by the wayside. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Minnesota Star-Tribune seems to think that President Trump and the administration is exaggerating, even though we keep seeing various types of fraud in all of these different sectors of the welfare state. MSNBC is also suggesting that the fraud is completely made up by President Trump. Take a listen.
Sure. So these were funds that were meant to go to help feed hungry people during the COVID pandemic, to help keep people in their were at risk of homelessness. So first of all, if there is fraud there, that should be fully investigated, no matter where it is, whether it's in a Democratic-led state, a Republican-led state. I mean, let's pull back. So absolutely, it should be investigated. The question is, why is this a priority in a different kind of way? The politicization of the DOJ and the FBI is undeniable. So whether they are reliable narrators is the big question. And this is
no, it's not in question at all. The fraud is real. It is happening. And we're not just investigating it because they're Somalis and they might need to get kicked out of the country. We're willing to investigate any fraud where it may lie. Now, speaking of which, we also have, again, another major fraudulent system that was discovered in Ohio. As we know, there is a major Somali population in Ohio as well. But before we do that, I have one final message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys, I just want to share very quickly a story about a farming family supporting this channel and many others. 8 years ago, their brother returned from Afghanistan. He had significant injuries. They watched as he became a shell of his former self. He lost the ability to function. Now, we can't share the exact nature of this story because of FDA restrictions, but suffice to say, his friends kept suggesting CBD. So they tried dozens of CBD products, but nothing helped. Out of frustration, they began to create their own. They started making it to just help friends and family so that they could have CBD they knew was clean and as powerful as possible. Then doctors started asking if they could carry it, and it took off. And now they speak at medical conventions, and they help a lot of other people across the United States. So while most companies have 1 to 10 compounds that are active in their CBD oil, this oil has up to 50. They also have 8 things that make their products different. They make balms, gummies, pet products, etc. They are called Emerald Med, and you should check these guys out. If you get their CBD and don't notice a big difference, they'll actually give you a total refund. So if you want to support a business that supports this channel and free speech with marketing dollars, and if you need a source for CBD that's real, they are running a very special New Year's deal right now. You can click the link below to try Emerald Med for 40% off today. Get extreme muscle and joint relief, get significant inflammation and circulation support, support quality sleep, or even daytime calm. They're worth at least a one-time try. So just click the link below and use the code for 40% off up to 2 items today. Or you can use that QR code right there and get 40% off. It's worth a shot. Thank you very much to them, and thank you very much to Rumble. All right, so now heading on back in to Ohio, where another independent journalist has uncovered an elaborate fraud scheme involving EBT and the SNAP system. So this was detailed in a video that's gone viral on social media. It highlights how individuals are using welfare benefits to subsidize their businesses while evading taxes. There was also another big bust down here in Florida. There were something like 60 people that were arrested because a pizza shop owner was buying EBT cards from crackheads at 50 to 60 cents on the dollar. And then you would take those EBT cards to Sam's Club, buy the materials for the restaurant, and then give the EBT cards back to the crackheads, who then, of course, would use the money to buy crack. And they have it all on video. They have it all on audio. They know exactly who it is. It was a ton of people, as well as the restaurant owner. But Wall Street Apes shared this over the weekend, and it shows this journalist touring a Columbus neighborhood and explaining the mechanics of this scheme. Every single Somali restaurant has a grocery store right next door or within eyeshot of the restaurant. So then they can just order everything they need to their grocery store that's right next to this place or attached to the restaurant. And they also own it, and they never have to fill a single cart. Take a look. I need to jump out of the reader view.
Oh yeah, the Somalians have it figured out in Columbus. I went to the Walmart on Georgesville to see if I could see people filling their carts or just kind of see what I could see. It's not the way they do it. They've got it figured out way better than that. Every single Somali restaurant has a grocery store right next door or within eyeshot of the restaurant. The specific one I went into today had it attached to the restaurant. And wow, what an adventure that was. Stay tuned for more on that. Anyways, the grocery store and the restaurant were the same building. So they don't have to go to a Walmart or a Sam's Club or a Costco necessarily. They can just order everything they need to their grocery store that's right next to or attached to the restaurant that they also own, and never have to fill a single cart. And I guarantee you, if you looked at the records of those grocery stores, they lose tons of money every year, and it's probably used as a tax write-off because those groceries are being funneled into those restaurants, with a daycare center on the opposite side. And that's the common trend you'll see.
Daycare centers, home health care, grocery stores, restaurants, and trucking companies. It's the quintuplet.
See, there's restaurants, grocery stores, and daycare centers, and also home health care businesses. I can't forget the home health care businesses. Nakia was absolutely right. And the reason for the daycare centers I found out while I was at Walmart. 3/4 of the workers I saw working in Walmart, especially the cashiers, were Somali women. You gotta figure, if you have 2 or 3 wives that you don't have to claim, these women can go work at Walmart full-time for $15 an hour and still qualify for food stamps, as long as they have a couple kids, which you can guarantee you they at least have 2 kids. Hell, they average 7. Or same story as working as a home health care aide. They have most definitely figured out the system and how to take advantage of it. And Columbus doesn't break down its numbers like Minnesota. But if anything like the 88% of the Somali community is on social services in Columbus, I can only imagine how deep the fraud is. So I'm changing tactics and going back up Monday, and I have a couple ideas to see if I can't sniff a few things out.
All right, so this guy's name on TikTok is Breaking Battlegrounds.
Oh, yeah.
Breaking Battlegrounds. Why you take my pick? All right, so the fraud is pretty evident there. You can see exactly how it's laid out. Now, here in Maine, it's the exact same thing. We've gone over the Somali fraud in Maine. The same guy who was calling around to the DMV to see if his illegal friend could be brought in to get him a driver's license so then he could vote. Turns out that he's identified a location at 77 Rideout Avenue, which is the host of many different daycare clients, all of them owned by Somalians. Now, many of these places have information that is out of date. Their phone numbers don't work. Nobody's answering. And of course, you can't go visit the location. This one place had 7 to 10 child daycares. So this is how it might work. They get subsidized housing. They get SNAP benefits for the family. They create a shell daycare with no contact info. They claim their own children, or they swap children with neighbors. They get reimbursed for food that they're already getting for free, and they get grants from the state as well. Now, he actually calls this number that does answer, and it turns out that there's a company or an agency with the state that handles all the paperwork and ensures that these daycare centers are compliant without verifying that they even have any actual kids going there.
So unfortunately, I can't give you the names of my clients that I serve, but I can tell you I have clients there because they're not affiliated with us other than doing the adult and child care food program. So you would have to go on the main child care choices and look it up, and they pop right up on the map.
Oh, okay. So you...
All right, so monthly estimate, assuming 21 days of child care in quotations per month, full attendance, all the kids qualify. So most of the kids are going to qualify for this month. Per child per day, they're going to get $1.70 for breakfast, $3.22 for lunch, and 96 cents for a snack. So that's $5.88. Let's say there's 100 kids there. Or 7 kids, okay? So that is $41.16 per day. That's $865 for month. There would be 252 operating days per year. So that's $10,380 per child that they would have registered there. And then there also is one-time stability grants and other support, which comes in the form of, say, like $800 for a small Somali family.
Your clients are actual like adults that do their own daycares? Is that how it works?
Yes, they're home daycare providers. Our program oversees some home daycares doing the adult and child care food program in that area.
Yeah, it's so confusing. I tried calling a few of them. None of them either answer because I found a ton that's at this address. No one answers, or it just says phone number disconnected. And you guys are the only ones that answered. Is that...
We don't refer you to them. I'm just letting you know there are daycares that we do serve the food program to, but they run their own business.
So the grift is strong in the Somali community. Now, here is where the good information comes from. We're going to end on this note because I want it to be a high note. FBI Director Kash Patel has also spoken out about this, in addition to Pam Bondi. And he confirms that Somali fraudsters are currently being referred for denaturalization and deportation, not only in Minnesota, but anywhere that this is happening. So obviously, we're going to focus on Minnesota because it's really blown up there. But the FBI is currently working on denaturalization and deportation on not only the people involved in the Feeding Our Future scam, but in the people involved in the daycare scam, in the home health care scam, in the autism care scam, in the transportation scam. This is across the board. So he says, case update on the Minnesota fraud scheme. The FBI is aware of recent social media reports in Minnesota. I need to leave the reader view to go to this. Oh, actually, they have the whole thing. However, even before the public conversation escalated online, the FBI had surged personnel and investigative resources to Minnesota to dismantle large-scale fraud schemes exploiting federal programs. Fraud that steals from taxpayers and robs vulnerable children will remain a top FBI priority in Minnesota and nationwide. To date, the FBI dismantled this $250 million fraud scheme that stole federal food aid meant for vulnerable children during COVID. The investigation exposed sham vendors, shell companies, and large-scale money laundering tied to the Feeding Our Future network. That case led to 78 indictments and 57 convictions. Defendants included, and he lists a bunch of people off, each charged for roles ranging from wire fraud to money laundering and conspiracy. These criminals didn't just engage in historic fraud, but they tried to subvert justice as well. There was, of course, the attempt to bribe a juror with $120,000 cash, but remember, it was a $200,000 bundle when the woman picked it up. Those responsible pled guilty and were sentenced, including a 10-year prison term and nearly $48 million in restitution in related cases. The FBI believes this is just the tip of a very large iceberg. We will continue to follow the money and protect children, and this investigation very much remains ongoing. Furthermore, many are also being referred to immigration's officials for possible further denaturalization and deportation proceedings where eligible. Now, they keep talking about Feeding Our Future. That is because it's the only case that has been adjudicated thus far. They cannot specifically comment on an ongoing investigation like what Nick Shirley was able to talk about over the weekend. So that's not going to be something that you're going to hear about. However, this is a major, major fraud investigation, and people all across Minnesota, Ohio, Maine, Washington, et cetera, they are also being looked into. Now, actually, I should probably show you this as well, because as I said, people all around the country started looking. There are 539 child care centers in Washington state that list Somali as the primary language, and guess what? Most of them don't even give a street address. Probably the vast majority of these are fraudulent as well, so the FBI would do well to look in this direction, and we'll go ahead and call it there. Now, let me say thank you to a couple of friends over here on Rumble who have donated once again. Let me say thank you to Hutchie, who says, thanks for your excellent reporting, Zach. Thank you, Hutchie. I appreciate you. Thank you to Keith O'Higgins. Good to see you. He says, seasons, blessings, Zach and Lisa. Thanks for the shout out last Tuesday on the Russian sub-story, proving you will investigate and follow up to inform your listeners all facts wherever they lead. Thank you so much, Keith. I appreciate you. Trisha, Q Patriot Texas says, Zach, could you please drop the link for the Somali fraud websites, please? Thank you. So I will need to... hold on. I need to open up my previous windows. Let me see. Undo close tab. Undo close tab, undo close tab, undo close tab, undo close tab, undo close tab. Yes, undo close tab, undo close tab. Okay, so it was youfundthis.com. Huh, it won't let me click it. There we go. youfundthis.com. There is the link for that. There is the link. I'm dropping it in all of the chats right now. There we go. And I'll put it over here on X as well. Okay, so what was the other one? It was, shoot, let me go back to Andrew's account. You fund this, daycaredata.com. Here's the other one. Okay, there we go. And over there on YouTube as well. Okay, youfundthis.com, daycaredata.com, and it was Somali. Let me go back to my bookmarks because I had this one in the same. Here it is. No, that's not it. Oh shoot, did I not? I don't think it was Beaver D, I think. At Beaver, yes. At Beaver D, and it is SomaliScan.com. Okay. And boom, 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 boom. There we go. SomaliScan.com, YouFundThis.com, and Daycare, was it? Daycare. Where is it? Daycaredata.com. Okay, so yes, there you go, guys. Also, Wounds Are Us says Mara Gay at MSNBC is the jackass that said $500 million would give every American $100 million. She is really dim, isn't she? Also, thank you for that. Forsaken Angel, thank you again for another $50 rant. Per the dude, the rug tied the whole room together. Sadly, now is the time to pull the rug, as it wasn't to prey on. As God is always with us, all of us, doormat not required. Where we go one, we go all. I love you, brother. Cyber X Speed says, Zach, check out Golf with Your Friends game on Steam. Great for streaming content with co-hosts. Only $5 currently. I will go ahead and check that out. Thank you, my friend. Go ahead and drop that into my browser for perusal later. Appreciate you. Also, he says, one more, Payday 2, only 99 cents. Great game for co-op. All right, I will check that out as well. All right, and then jumping on over to Pilled, let me say thank you very much. We're going to jump up here to, oh gosh, okay, Moon Baby says, thanks for bringing the news, RP. Truly appreciate having news sources I can trust. I read that one already. Filter Dog says, Nick Shirley has security now, but he's been getting many death threats. I'm surprised it took him this long to get security. Judy the Lady Pug, do you not mean horse-size balls? It could be horse-size balls. I was just thinking of some big animal. Tin Man 1295, thank you for the cookie. Filter Dog says, come on, Zach, fraud is the way of life in Somalia, so they cannot be blamed. That's right. Their number one export is piracy, so what should we expect? One Thunder, thank you for the can. Pkwy, thank you for the cookie. Sean Joe, thank you for the can, the shades, and the cookie. And No Thanks Joe says, thank you, Lisa and Zach. I know it's an abridged weekend, or excuse me, it's an abridged week, but I look forward to all of your stories in your reporting in the days that you'll be working this week. Thank you for your hard work. God bless, be safe. God bless you as well, brother. Always a pleasure to see you. Just Josie, thank you for the cookie. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. Just Joe, thank you for the cookie. Just Josie, thank you for the cookie. And Sean Joe, thank you for one final cookie. All right, you guys, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you very much for joining me. Please do me a favor, hit that like button, the red pill, the thumbs up, whatever it might be. Do me a favor and share this with the people in your life and let them know that they should be listening to Red Pill News every day, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on a Red Pill 78. All right, good luck, God bless, and I will see you guys next time. We're going to set up a raid, and I'm also going to do the gold pills, so don't you worry. All right, peace. Oh, before you guys go, don't forget you can still head on over to onenessdrops.com/BOGO Red Pill 78. That buy one, get one free on everything on the website is still available. onenessdrops.com/BOGO Red Pill 78. Get yourself some chlorine dioxide water purification kits, or the Mullen drops, or the soursop extract, or maybe the DMSO, whatever it might be. You can get it over there and get yourself something for free. Don't forget, you can also check out mypillow.com. Use code RP78 to save up to 80% off of Mike Lindell's amazing American-made products. Of course, you're going to be supporting the show. You're also going to be supporting Mike Lindell's run for governor of Minnesota. Nobody deserves it more than he. And then, of course, my good friend Jordan over at ConsciousStrength.net. Use the code RP78 and you can save big on methylene blue, on their oregano oil, on their whole food vitamin C, electrolytes, green energy, their collagen, their zeolite, their curcumin, or the Shilajit gummies, or the Myco coffee, or the iodine colloidal silver. They have so many products that Jordan offers over there, and he sources and packages everything himself, so you know that it's good. And don't forget about preparewithredpill78.com. That is my Patriot Supply. They've still got special limited time offers through the end of the year. You can get their winter survival kit with $400 in free goods. You can also get a 3-month emergency supply of food plus $400 in bonus gear. So many different things that you can get over there. You want to go ahead and check it out.